Global Series. Today is the last match day of Split 1 here in EMEA, which means it is the last opportunity for these teams to get some points on the board and keep their hopes of LAN alive. Today we'll find out not only who we will see competing in the regional finals, but also which teams solidify their spots at Split 1 playoffs. It's going to be a great day today, and I am so excited to dive into it. I'm your host, Glitter Explosion, and of course, we've got the dynamic duo back in Tiff and Zephyr. Tiff, are you ready to close out the regular season? I don't know how it's here already.
I have no idea how we've gotten here already. Like you said, APAC North knows who's going to LAN. APAC South finished up this morning, but it's time to find out who's going to be locking their ticket into the regional finals next week for EMEA. And honestly, I'm curious at this point. Glitter, Zephyr, are we going to see another AURORA win? Can they do it?
Oh, you're putting it out there. We'll have to see what happens. That would be an insane run on behalf of AURORA. But Zephyr, on the flip side of things, we also have lots of teams on the bubble. Are you ready to keep your eyes on that fight?
It always makes it interesting when we get into the last day or the last 6 matches specifically, where those teams start to feel the pressure because for their own bubbles, they may potentially pop.
Oh, we're starting early. We're starting early with the dad jokes, the puns. All right, you know, we're gonna let it happen. Now, before we start diving into all of our action today, first, we have to get a lay of the land so that everybody at home, you know exactly where all of our teams currently stand. And we mentioned them. We heard Tiff say the name. AURORA currently the only team that has officially secured their spot to playoffs. Everybody else still has a little bit of a fight left ahead of them in this last day. To be fair, though, 07 are very close to him.
I would put him at about a 99.5% safety rating in my book, so I'm gonna go ahead with AURORA and 07 pretty much locked in. But for the rest of our teams, everyone really has to play to their fullest potential because there are so many teams in that threshold outside that top 8, which we're looking for 8 teams from EMEA to lock in for LAN. But at the end of the day, the story goes, the top 20 get to play once again next week.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Obviously, we'll be keeping our eyes on that top 20 bubble, but there's a second bubble that we're also looking at here, Zephyr. The team's trying to avoid being relegated, and you can see down there at the bottom, the first team confirmed relegated is Pest Control, so they could also be a little bit of a nuisance here today.
I was about to say, that's one of the few teams that is actually confirmed and competing into today's matches, so we'll have to see where they place themselves. But alongside them, teams like Mind, 40% worse, Red Dragon, these are rosters that don't get another shot. Their final match day was yesterday. So for them, they have to sit on the sidelines and let fate be decided by those such as 202, Stay Healthy, Vexed, Cold and Infinite as well, who have the opportunity to switch things up.
Yeah, lots of storylines that we'll be keeping our eyes on here today. Lots of action that we have to pay attention to. But to close out our final match day of the day, it will be groups B and C. And like we were mentioning when we were looking at those standings, pretty much everybody except AURORA and 07 really need to have a strong performance here today. We've got multiple teams on the bubble like Cold, Stay Healthy, 202, and that bubble is a dangerous spot to be because they can either make it to regional finals, not make it to regional finals, but still stay in Pro League, or get relegated completely, entirely based off of their performance here today. It's gonna be a lot that we have to focus on. So before we do the matches, let's focus down on some of these teams. We've mentioned how many different teams we have to be focusing on here today. Well, we've picked 3 for our ones to watch. Some really solid choices, in my opinion. We've got Omit, The Forge, and Passion UA. And if you're just joining us today, just a reminder, Omit is the former ESG team. And Tiff, that's your pick. So talk to me about him here.
Yeah, and I love that you shout that out because a lot of people yesterday might not have been familiar with Omit. Omit actually acquired ESG back early in February and the rename just came through. So the roster of Blast, Lufka, and Light, you know, they've been really putting in work. Yesterday's performance was one of their best, so could that have been that rename buff? I spoke to Rafi earlier yesterday and he was like, look, you know how Omit does. It's kind of the Omit effect at this point. And so maybe they can take a little bit of that consistency and pull it forward because they're currently sitting in 16th overall, 22 points outside the top 8, and they do get to play yet again today, but also in the regional finals if they can stay consistent enough to keep in that top 20. But throughout the entirety of Split 1, it has been such a journey. Starting with that Zeus Station contest against the full English, but here we go, doubling back down on their performance yesterday. You can see they had 3 top 5 finishes, with that match 5 game really being the threshold that kept them in the top 3 for yesterday's performance, that second with 10 eliminations. My only thing is, can we keep that consistency moving forward today? Because they do have that long journey to get to land. So Zephyr, I know we talked a lot about Omit, but you're one of my favorite people when it comes to EMEA, and I'm really curious who you've got your eye on.
I think the Forge is someone that not only me, myself, and I have had my eye on, but of course everyone else as well. A star-studded roster from previously the roster mania, truly mixing things up between Horizon, Union, and Element 6, combining Phoenix and J Savage alongside Slayers. So as a result, many people in their expectations shot them potentially to the top before we worked our way into the split. But the truth is, these guys were floundering right out of the gates. I mean, their points, whack. Their placement, whack. Their kills, whack. Now, they're tight as hell. We come out at match 5, 6, and 8, second, 6th, and 5th, respectively, for their placement. This roster has gone from 30th to now in the middle of the pack for a qualifying spot for potentially those regional finals and maybe even a spot at our playoffs.
Yeah, the Forge are definitely a really good shout there, Zephyr, especially when you do take into consideration just how much they were able to improve their performance throughout the split so far. But we were actually able to speak with Phoenix heading into this weekend and see what exactly they did as a team to turn that performance around.
Hi everyone, Phoenix here from Team The Forge, and my teammates are Slayers, J7W, and our coach Bowsy. So, as a team, we went in the season very confident. However, we completely misinterpreted how the lobby would play out. We didn't play with any confidence. We were just scared to make any plays, and because of that, we ended literally at the bottom. After the first round, we were in 30th. You couldn't go any lower. So we had to shift things completely around. We adapted to different roles, made sure that everyone is in the correct role that they feel comfortable in, and we went over it and said, listen, we are just playing too scared. We are not confident enough. We need to get this confidence. We are better than these teams. So that's exactly what we did. We started playing with confidence. We played appropriate roles, and immediately our fight started getting better, our placement started getting better, and we could see the difference, and we were yeah, we just completely started the season wrong and found the right way to do it now. Well, now that we have bounced back and we are in a position where we can make regional finals and maybe land potentially, we are really preparing with everything we can do really for this double header. We got a back-to-back 30 different teams, 2 different lobbies. It's going to be a complete mess. We have to really focus and narrow down all the little mistakes we've made in the previous weeks and make sure we don't do them again, so we can actually perform, and we just have to give it our all.
Well, they definitely have figured their stuff out here today. We'll have to see what they can bring to the table for the last match day. It's always great to hear from Phoenix, but for me, we've got one more team to talk about. I want to mention Passion UA as my team to watch here today. Now, for me, they're 6th overall, but that's not necessarily indicative of just how consistent they've been. Yesterday alone, they were able to have some really, really strong performances when it came to their World's Edge side of things. They have a little bit of a dip there in the middle of the day when they made their way over to Storm Point, but then they were also able to close out the day with a 4th place finish on Storm Point as well. And the one thing that stood out to me was the fact that they were able to do that while nailing down some really consistent KP as well. And that was impressive because if you remember yesterday, it was a really, really slay heavy lobby. So the fact that they were able to kind of maintain their composure in that situation while also keeping themselves at the top is a reason that I want to be keeping my eyes on them here today. Also need to point out that Passion UA were the team that won the only match day so far that Aurora did not win. So they've also proven that they have the ability to be at the top with the best in the region. But we also got a chance to catch up with Max Strafe earlier on to see how the team has been feeling about their performance in the season so far.
Hello everyone. My name is Maxim Stadnyuk. I'm playing under nickname Max Strafe. I'm representing the organization Passion UA, and I'm playing with teammates Artico and Sanya. Also, we have stand-in Hron, who have birthday today, and everyone in chat drop him love, drop him best smiles. You have wish him best for his life, and yeah, hello everyone. Yes, definitely. We have like one extra day of play out of like 8 teams ahead of us. Because I played 5 days, we played only 4, so we have the full weekend to reach in the top position on Pro League, and I'm really confident. I'm pretty sure that we will make it, even like we're struggling in scrims, but this doesn't matter because everyone playing on tourney and scrims differently, so we will do it. I have to say that it's actually what we were rallying for, because we built a team with 3 Ukrainians to have a chance to qualify for LAN and go to the LAN and represent Ukrainian org and Ukraine on the tourney. So we deal really quick, we are on the same page, and we have the same goals. So yeah, it is just really nice that they picked us up, and we're trying our best to represent this organization in the hopes that we will qual and they will be happy. That's all.
Pickup has definitely been going well for Max Strafe and Co. there on behalf of Passion UA. So excited to see what they bring to the table here today in our last match day. Now we've got a little bit of time before we get into our first match. So we talked about this before the show started, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. There is a possibility for some of our teams that are playing today, whether they are towards the bottom and maybe can't make their way into regional finals, or teams that are right on the bubble that might have to do something crazy here to get some desperate points on the board and keep their hopes alive. Do you think we'll see that in EMEA the same way that we did in some of the other regions like you had mentioned, Tiff?
I want to see something crazy. Look, I do, but I think the time for the craziness would be in the regional finals. I think today we just need to lock it in and focus on the teams to focus on essentially their game plan, right? Just do what you know best. Take your early rotations, level up that Evo shields. Hopefully we don't have any crazy wild zone pulls, which we've been seeing a lot of recently. And that typically happens in APAC North, where you'll be reading a zone and next thing you know, you think you're going checkpoint and it completely pulls out to the choke. You've got like 1 million people. What was the one zone, Zephyr? Do you know what I'm talking about, where it pulled down to Sito, where everyone was inside a checkpoint yesterday?
Oh, in North America?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. I know that one.
That's what I'm saying. Like, those are the kind of zone pulls we're seeing here. So trying to play around that and avoid those missteps, it's really tough at that point in time. So I would love to see teams, if they have the capability to go ahead and play for that ring 3 information. If that doesn't match your playstyle, I completely understand, but we'll get a good look at what those zone layouts look like for EMEA in particular. And I know we've got some points specifically around that glitter, because you were like, look, the outside of the maps, it's looking real nice.
Yeah, and sorry, and we were talking about that. Sorry, right, Zephyr? We were talking about the fact that sometimes the teams that don't necessarily end up with the zone pulls in their favor, it actually works out for them because it gives them an opportunity to get those evils leveled up. And that's proven to be really, really important in this new Season 20 meta.
We're going to talk about it at some point. If I can get my hands on like a little asset frame and they let me kind of do some MS Paint work in the back, I will bring forth the numbers that matter.
Oh no.
Here. But there are some proofs in the pudding, I promise you. The timings are starting to work out opposite of what we typically think. The longer you are taking on some of these rotations and actually expending yourself to find your way towards these Evo, the more likely you are to place and finish higher. And trust me, I'll prove it eventually, but at least for now, when it comes to your point, Lauren, whether it be a wayward zone or potentially a bad start, that's not the end of the world. And especially given the fact that we're looking at the majority of our teams between 13th and 27th today, I mean, it's going to come down to the line there.
Which is why today is going to be so exciting. So everybody at home, I hope you are settled in and ready to see how EMEA is going to play out today, because it's going to be really exciting. We didn't even get a chance to talk about contests or how those things could potentially affect how these games will play out as well. But I will leave that to the two of you, because match number 1 is almost ready to go, which means Tiff and Zephyr, it is time to kick off our last match day in EMEA.
I can't even believe you're saying that. Look, the last match day before regional finals, Zephyr, who would have thought? It's been the craziest, like 2-month journey throughout these 9 days, and the time is now. Can Aurora take another one? Who will be able to unseat them? I love that Glitter had mentioned earlier that Passion UA was the only team to be able to evict Aurora out of that top spot, and quite frankly, it was by 2 points.
And the crazy thing is we go into yesterday and 2R1C was literally tied alongside them. So I'm not preying upon any downfalls, but if there's a chance to do it, match 6 or today is starting to look particularly good.
It definitely is. And here's the map rotations for the day. We will be kicking things off on that ever familiar World's Edge for the first 3 maps before we jump on over to Storm Point. Now, we kind of alluded to this early on, what those circles were looking like. So let's look through historically for EMEA only on World's Edge. And now, quite frankly, those monument zones that always pull to the mountainsides out towards the west, those are some of my favorite, most difficult zones that we've had.
Oh, absolutely. And to be honest, the ones that are my least favorite are Skyhook, and we've seemed to have gotten quite a bit of those. But we'll point out most notably the fact that Siphon and Climatizer seems to be in need of action here. But the craziest part about those two POIs, and something that I want folks to watch today, is that that is where we typically see both Aurora and Navi start here. Some of our 2 most excellent rosters.
Love those good shouts for sure. We had that one lone Climatizer zone up to the far north, but for our contests today that we will potentially be seeing, we're gonna look down towards the tree. 202 just cannot get tree to themselves. Contested all weekend throughout, and over at Overlook, we got Aftermath taking on Vex. But GoNext, you know, they're getting Lava Fissure, Mirage à Trois, priority to any of those zones that decide to pull, maybe Thermal we could see, and Alliance still reigning supreme on Thermal. I don't think they'll ever give that one up.
I don't know, but ultimately today's a day where it needs to come out in a way that promotes them to the best of their abilities. They're not going anywhere. They're not dropping out of our top 20 anytime soon, but ultimately for a roster that is oh so close to breaking through the top 8, the points today could hold more weight than Alliance knows going into regional finals.
Ooh, speaking of not going anywhere, y'all better get locked in because we're in character select at this point. It's going to be all the Bloods, all the Bangs. I'd imagine a ton of Caustics as well, but with advantage on the line for pest control, I do enjoy that as well. A couple Watsons in the fray, and the crypto gameplay. Ever since the EMP perk where you get to maximize the EMP, people have been just dropping that everywhere and taking fights that have been so smart. But to kick things off on World's Edge, the blimp in the distance with our notorious Horizon's face on it. Shout out Elle, I see you out there. She's been playing a lot of Apex lately and it's been a joy to see. But for now, we turn our sights to the ever familiar Match 1, Day 9.
Oh, chills in the air, but the game has started, and notably, it's with a surprise out here in Overlook. LVH potentially in the midst of action already right off the bat.
And this has been one of those contests that they have been scrimming in, they have been practicing, and I don't know if anyone caught the clip of the longest chase I've ever seen at the hands of someone trying to finish this off. Are we getting another look at it, but this side from Aftermath's POV?
Well, they've got to come true quite quickly here. Bavis taken low and forced now due in separation from both Kurev and Stalzy. This could be something that comes back to bite this roster as they look to reapproach. But ultimately, looks like LVH have taken much of a deeper escape here.
This does happen, but I usually see LVH kind of evict themselves out to the houses more towards the north of Overlook instead of pushing towards Tunnel and No Name. So I do think this is smart for them to kind of amicably part here, because we were talking earlier about what that contesting can do to your entire split. We need to see you actually play that out. And for 202, they took control of Tree and essentially evicted the pests.
They've come through, fumigated the area, and now they're laying stake and claim to the houses themselves and investing in some now cleaner and good real estate here to get themselves looted up. And of course, those Evo caches as well, that should set 202 on their best foot forward. We'll have to tune in with them later. It's definitely one of those rosters that we're keeping our eyes peeled on. Coming through from preseason qualifiers, now potentially going to be back down to defending themselves here in a few weeks.
Oh, this is going to be interesting. We get a good look of where our first circle of the day is going to be pulling. And now that we've seen that Overlook contest kind of wave the white flag, this makes sense, right? However, Aftermath is going to have one of the shortest rotations and the least amount of space to go ahead and get those Evo shields leveled up, and will likely only be able to walk in with blue. But for teams that are looking to have maybe those map scans via the survey beacons or any ring consoles for that information, you can see Staging had that ring console. We have Passion UA kind of moving out towards Harvester, already setting their sights on. They can hit that second ring console there for a third. But we were talking about those monument zones. This one's pulling a little bit south, and I'm curious for that choke by Geyser, Zephyr. That's what I'm nervous with.
Right here, TSM Phoenix on their hold currently. This could be a great place to play into for height in our late game. The choke alongside them as well coming out of Lava Siphon can be just as good here, as we sometimes see this zone work its way on top of those blue boxes. And things to note here for the future. We saw a triple scan available for our teams out in the southeast. So most rosters, including Na'Vi coming up here, will have all the information regarding what we know ourselves, this finish right here. The question, though, remains, can they defend it? Or even for Na'Vi's sake, do they move forward?
I mean, if you've got a turbocharged Diva with a 48 gold bag in there, you can defend a lot with Tyler. It's kind of similar to the effect when you hand Kinda a wingman. A lot of things gonna happen there for Na'Vi, and I'm gonna be keeping my eyes on them. But for Stay Healthy, with that second zone information, kind of deciding on where they want to approach it, we do have the Beast of the Hunt available should they run into any squads nearby. But some of these fights, as a lot of teams hit that early rotation, the moment you start engaging, there's a very good possibility of maybe a third or fourth party. So people that are looking to get those early KPs and bolster their score overall on the day. I mean, look, anything can happen at this point.
I'm really curious about teams like Cold and Portugal as they come out from regions like the Dome or Stacks, how they're going to fight their way into this zone. We see LVH, who were pressured off of their position out in Overlook, now just starting to make their way back in. But from a distance, we can see the drops upon the Forge here, set up early underneath the train line, a position that sometimes can work its way out in the late game, ultimately is held far too early.
Yeah, I just am not a fan of that spot early on, and similar enough, we got Passion UA kind of making their way in, and with so much open space, this is not going to be really that great. You got to use the rocks to cover, but with so many people on Bangalore, you got the consistent smokes, you have the rolling thunders you have to be very weary of. But for the most part, I think Passion UA is one of the squads that does play Watson, so trying to keep your Jenny online, ranking up the ult excels, whether you move space and kind of throw it down. For LVH that had to kind of evict early out of Overlook, sitting on blue, they're doing okay in terms of their loot, considering they only got tunnel available.
And they've got time. Ultimately, at the end of the day, set up in a building like this for a zone like this should give them the opportunity to pick for purple, but it could come quite a bit earlier here. Now chasing down below the train line. They don't got quite the coverage they need, and as a result, Liffin immediately going to be dropping that Rolling Thunder to give them just a bit of respite here, get themselves reset up, but they've got to make sure they're covering all sides.
Ooh, if there's one thing I've learned, sometimes it's a crazy Bloodhound that's just gonna push straight through a Rolling Thunder and look for the angles that allow them to move in. Now with two members of LVH down, it's Vibes just kind of going for this last stand hope, expending the black hole, nade spamming to the best of their abilities, and we talked of the choke between Geyser. Na'Vi goes down elsewhere.
Na'Vi notably picked up in part, but mostly by TSM Phoenix, and Vexed in their turn-tail obsession with LVH are finally picked apart from behind, that being Infinite on the rotation. But it comes at the cost of so many teams there, LVH being the only one to just work their way out. And notably, we asked if this was going to be a crazy match day. We're sitting at 16 squads remaining on a round one clues. We have accelerated here, and for Aurora, they don't seem to be slowing down.
No, you say accelerating, they're going to take out ExoClan, but we've got to be very weary, right? They're coming down from Climatizer. They finally make their way to Monument, but other teams that have that northward presence is going to be LCDF that come down from Skyhook. The question is, where have they gone? No, we see them in the distance, just about 280 meters back. They're still working their way down, so that is going to be a real threat to Aurora, depending on where they want to clean out on that side of Edge. But with that zone kind of bouncing back, Zephyr, Do you know what I'm thinking?
I personally don't.
You should. You should.
But I assume you're talking about the final positions here.
The final positions and where we're going to be taking that. If it pulls back towards that mountainside, which I have personally seen a lot more of, be really curious because that's not going to be fun to take earlier. And I do know Omit Blast potentially has a QUERER in hand. So we do love some QUERER gameplay, but trying to smoke out, maybe play for this ring console, get that extra information with teams nearby can make things a little more challenging.
Can I just say it is absurd though? We're sitting on 3 rosters playing the southern side here, still deep into edge with open positionings completely available when we talk about this end zone. It's not particularly the best place to play out in the open there, but even chokes like Navi's now available completely uncontested here. I like the fact that at the end of the day, Cold's going to make big moves and finally close that distance, but the lack of pressure within this lobby due to the quick elimination of teams is something that rosters have to acknowledge here. There's a lot of free open space available.
Dare I say scrims? No, just kidding. But this is typically what happens in scrims, right? A lot of teams go out early and you think of places to play, they usually wouldn't match up to ALGS Day. But now we're looking at 15 squads, round 2 closing. That is very much everything that you've been saying. So when I think of teams that have really good zone predictability and knowledge, I look to teams like Team Portugal and Passion UA. And the call is, well, Passion UA is in the building just north of GoNext, kind of fenced up and ready. Team Portugal is holding as if it does pull to the mountainside.
Ultimately, that's going to be a great area for the end game, but the question is, with the assault and rush of some of these teams coming out of these chokes later on, are they going to be able to defend themselves? Now, Alliance, they're one of the slower rosters out from the western side that could ultimately be in one of the better positions this game. We talk about a lot of the pressure. Notice it is on towards that fragment end or the chokes themselves. Alliance are kind of alone in the nature of how these decisions come true. With great timing and potentially the assistance of some of these other teams, they could be setting themselves up for a big game.
They could, and I love the choke that they're holding. And for Aurora, they are just roaming free. The confidence after winning so many match days. They've got Hardeki still locking in the lifeline. And I saw some of the craziest clutch resets yesterday out of Hardeki, and I can't wait to see if we get some more of those today. But they are just kind of looking for their entryway in. Do we want to see that happen? And how do they approach it? Are they going to take that? Because they were originally moving in towards the monument side where they took out EXO. They go kind of for a negative rotate wrap around Epi, and now they've got a lay of the land. But for Team Portugal, they pick up that care package, EVA 8, throw it straight onto Q, and just look to kind of stabilize here alongside their Jenny with their fence positions. I'm curious though, post kill, we gotta start building. We gotta start building those fences up.
It is a hard area to cover though. I mean,
It really is.
This is a huge spot for Team Portugal to take over early here, and it really leaves worries, especially now, notably, to achieve and get that EVA on EQ there, they had to expend the EMP. I don't know what their current situation of loot looks like potentially for some ultimate charges, but at the end of the day, one good assault, one good rush here after maybe some forced positioning off of this round 3 close, and they might not be ready.
Well, we've got a minute left before round 3 closes. Let's jump into a listen in with TSM Phoenix, because they're going to have threats from the trope, but they have to navigate forward.
There, playing on the here.
So what, do we just wait for them to have no space and then...
Yeah,
Not kill them?
remember we don't have bang, so crossing like that, we're just gonna get
yes,
caught by everybody. I think we're just gonna play for this and look. We're gonna need to make sure that they're gonna stay in the choke, and we're gonna need to full look right side basically.
Yes, and still watch out for the rap guy. Yes,
Yeah.
good.
The worst case scenario, if that will be really bad this rock, we can slide into the tracks and kill the team. Okay?
Choke has a team behind them, I think, like in the no-name.
Yeah.
They will focus them. We can just, like,
Wait.
flip it out now.
Wait, look for me.
All right, coming back out of that. I mean, very aware. They are one of the only teams that doesn't lock in that Bangalore, not having smokes for rotation, but they do have the Jenny available should they get to another good position where they can kind of reset up an incoming blood scan. So we need to keep our eyes on that. Fraz just trying to look for anyone. But for the teams that are pushing their way into the choke, it's Cold in the neighboring one, Omit rotating up on them, and Alliance is just able to take so much space on their side for their choke for free.
For free, at least for right now. Depending on where Omit have potentially been forced to rotate, that may not be the case anymore. But ultimately at this position, that is a decision and an exchange that needs to come true to give Phoenix their chance here. Ultimately, it looks like Cold are going to be the dominant ones in play from that high end for Phoenix. They turn their sights, of course, down to the low ground, like they said. As a result, they've completely eliminated, and now just barely do they find themselves a minor bit of cover here on the edge.
Yeah, this is tough. Get the Jenny down, make sure it's a good position, and try to navigate accordingly. But with the most minimal space and a lot of teams setting their sights onto them, you have essentially become the center of the sandwich, and it's not going to be what you want. Alliance continuously pushing down. Omit wraps around, pushes straight into the heavy powerhouse. Light going down, Blast's about to join him, and Lufka, the last stand against Effect.
And here's the thing, this is completely solo dolo on the edge here for Alliance. It's an easy 3KP in a position they can work their way back into, but for TSM Phoenix, while it may be dreams, it'll be nightmares for them out here on the edge. Sab's down to just a single pickup of health, and surprisingly left standing, barely alive. A revive potentially sticked on the other end, as Infinite are going to pull themselves back up with Cold now moving in to capitalize here.
You know Graceful was watching the kill feed, looking for those knocks, fighting for the right position to make sure this is the time that we get in. And they do. They go in, pick up some KP, clean house now, knowing that there is no one on their backside. They have 20 seconds before they need to start moving, but it's all open from here. Now, granted, the zone doesn't necessarily pull to the mountainside. It bounces back kind of to the train pathing. But for 202 in this train cart, a bunch of caustic gas, and trying to stabilize in such a minimal amount of space that isn't even in is tough.
Not terrible, though. At the end of the day, they're still picking up more KP than what we've seen from some of these other rosters. Remember, even 2 to 3 points on your first game of the day can be absolutely huge, but the question of where they position themselves for the future will be what we ask for LCDF. Straight to the head of Team Portugal. I'm surprised they get to play this even kind of spot here. Now stuck with the EMP, Flesh found. I think potentially their days are done. It's the lowly knockdown shields that save Izidan for the time being.
And Zidane actually goes crazy. I've been keeping an eye on a lot of his POVs throughout scrims, throughout match days, and just some of the things that they are able to accomplish is wild. But despite having everyone looking down, you don't have those knockdown shields anymore. The incoming nade spam, they took those out, and you are just praying that no one looks your way. Alliance walks in to that next zone. Meanwhile, LCDF will be fooled. Aurora in the distance, still fighting for whatever they can get. But Alliance just roaming the west side like crazy. The disruptors singing, and the push comes in, and Effect just says, no, man, get down. This is my high ground. I'm on blood. I'm going to keep going. The beast of the hunt, every knock, every kill, extending that time. This is how you go big.
That is just insane from Effect there. Literally doing the majority of that fight's damage in the lonesome, especially alongside those disruptors. They'll hopefully be able to get unlucky, potentially back into it there. My apologies. We'll see where they end up in the long run. Moby's coming down. For Team Portugal, though, no one has truly challenged this. With Cold leaving the height early on, ultimately they get to hold on to this height for free. And Alliance, being the only aggressor out there from the west, now potentially in struggles themselves.
We talk of the aggressors from the west, but Graceful being the aggressors from the east, taking out not only Aurora and then another squad. It's Graceful just leading the charge for that. For Made in Heaven, they will have to leave this building, trying to get a little bit further, and Cold is going to be that next level threat for them. But we've got post-kill, making sure they get that Watson ult down and set their sights on. They've got the EVA 8. They have a wingman. This could be a really solid game for them.
That's got to be Alliance over there with Unlucky now back in the field. Taking this position away is something that they hope to grant them. Not a playable spot, but the chance to wipe Team Portugal to finish off this particular 3v3 would give them the win today. But ultimately, remember, they just expended so much utility there to secure what were those initial 3 kills.
All I know is Alliance has every bit of space that they need. They've taken control throughout every ring, and Cold on 9. At least 5 eliminations for this squad. Looking for more if we can get a couple more knocks. The swing together ends made in Heaven's time. They do have to watch out, because guess who wants to full send them? It's going to be Passion UA, and even Team Portugal kind of sending to get involved a little bit.
Ultimately going for the pipe down below. They will grant themselves a minor bit of cover, even if we don't see the damage come through. And this has left the entire southern side completely in control of Alliance. And look at that pull. It is playing directly in front of Hockey's here.
And he's able to just get on that rock and put an angle down. But for QUERER on Crypto, I'm sure we have the EMP locked and waiting. But the choice is, where do we sit this position? Because at that point, do you full send onto Passion UA and try to play for second, grab as many eliminations as you can? Or do we make another play? Because at this point, Alliance is able to just keep pressure on Passion UA and Team Portugal.
Is going to come down to choice scenarios, especially like you said, the timing of that EMP. The question is it during the climb up from Passion UA as they pressure the pipeline itself, or is it the initial onslaught from Alliance here as they're forced to shift down from above? Notably, it does look like just barely Passion UA might be able to play this a little bit longer than Alliance.
And I'm really curious, because Sonya does have the Rolling Thunder. The timing of that coupled with the Wingman can do a lot of damage in minimal time. So they can turn kind of this position underneath. But that EMP almost taking up the entirety of the circle. Passion UA starts kind of faltering. They lose a lot of their shields, but can we get back to full form before we have to continuously push out? And when will Team Portugal leave the tube?
Ultimately, that EMP, though, never hit Alliance. And the timing is oh so particular. But at the end of the day, that's what might come back to bite Team Portugal here. Now, Effect with ultimate in hand. It's going to be like shooting fish in a barrel when it comes down to the pipeline. Hockey's on the other side, and with one quick slide, they will find major Fleshbound and the knocks to boot. They got to worry about UA from behind, though.
And here it goes. They stayed so healthy on that swing against Team Portugal. And Alliance, they win the first map with ease. Effect on that Bloodhound, just really utilizing the Beast of the Hunt to max potential and just eviscerate everyone.
I feel like it's an Effect highlight reel from this game alone, from the Beast of the Hunt in our early fights to potentially more in the final moments there. Alliance, I mean, I can't say anything but perfection in that first game, from their rotation out, their fight against Omit, and then most importantly, pressuring and taking away that position from Team Portugal. I was shocked to see them drop that one to such a degree after holding on for dear life throughout that entire early game.
Yeah, you think of the history of the early game. They land thermal stations, so it only makes sense for them to take the choke that they had. But you called it out right. The pressure from Omit on that rotation early, because they were anchoring one up front to kind of keep an eye on where Team Portugal was playing, but then they doubled down and put Hackett and Effect on that southern side to keep an eye on Omit. And then originally, when they said, hey, you know, Omit's coming this way, they kind of grouped back up together, completely annihilate them, and set their sights onto walking in. Regardless, that is how that should be played, and it was pretty impressive.
Absolutely. Something to note, though, is Passion UA kind of just poof in the mist there. We thought they were going to be a little bit more of a dominant pressure, especially in our endgame, but after that EMP, never really getting the opportunity to put their shields back up and losing out notably of the underside cover there. The minute they hit train line, they basically hit the grave.
I don't like saying that. They hit the grave. Look, I respect the building they were playing in, and I respect where Team Portugal was, but that pool, not in their favor. And at that point in time, it was so heavily congested up to that frag east side with everyone making their rotations throughout those choke points. It was just going to be such a nightmare. Let's go ahead and take a look at match number 1 results. Let's see how everything panned out for them with Alliance. 11 eliminations, a 23-point start for them on the day. And despite having the work cut out for Passion UA on that rotation, not getting the favored zone pool 16.
And something crazy to see here is the fact that rosters like Cold, Made in Heaven, who were getting a little bit feisty in the fragment area, ultimately come out on top of teams like Portugal here, never getting into a fight, setting themselves deep into the end zone, gives them the placement points, but they could not find any KP here. As a result, they're surpassed by many.
Surpassed by many, and Infinite got into the action early. Despite finishing in 11th, they were able to take home 6 eliminations in map 1 for a total of 7 points, which overall, really not too bad. TSM Phoenix, they had some good positioning early on, not able to maintain that choke, go out with 4 points. But for teams like LVH, despite that contest alongside Aftermath, they both go out early, even Vex as well. It's kind of tough, right? We talk about the contest and they can just genuinely be one of the worst things for your entire splits. Go ahead and look at the stats from the top 3 finishers of map number 1, and in particular, Effect. You said the highlight reel Zephyr, well, a nice 1800 damage.
It's a good start there, but we're going to see if Alliance can keep this one up. They showed some incredible changes in these last few match days, but today is a day where it needs to shine more than ever. So game 1 is good, but can they maintain it here? For Passion UA in Portugal, though, I mean, we see some cookage from Passion as a whole, cleaning up the remnants of Fragment. Portugal, though, bit of an outlier.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, that's what you get when you get to zone early and you just really focus on holding it and not really wanting to overextend, get involved. They focused on the placement. It paid off. Regardless, 7 points is 7 points. But we're going to cut to a quick break and get some things together. When we come back, we'll have match number 2 on World's Edge.
Welcome back, everybody, to the ALGS. You're seeing Zephyr's face. That's because he wanted to see the reveal on that trivia, and he didn't know if his answer was correct. That might haunt him for the rest of his days now.
Someone, if you're in chat, send me a DM at ZephyrCast on Twitter. Tell me who that was, because I need to know.
Maybe you're right. Maybe you're not. We might never find out, Zephyr. You're going to have to live with it as we prepare for match number 2 on the day. But can we talk about Effect in that last match? Because it was like a one-man show. The Bloodhound was insane. Alliance have a really, really strong match 1 performance. And I mean, that's a great start to the day, but we also saw Passion UA up there and we talked about them at the top of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a result, now both of these teams leading the pack in what we have dominated as an Aurora lion's share of points spread. But ultimately, 5 good matches to go in World's Edge to once again reintroduce itself. We talk about the top end. 2 teams I'm looking for more than anything. I put my sights on Forge, but Na'Vi down with 0.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of a surprise there, but obviously first match on the day, having to see what these teams can bring to the table. There's so many teams though that either want to stay in the top 20 bare minimum, right? But then also trying to get into that top 8 for LAN as well. So we're watching a lot of people jockeying either for their lives in regional finals or trying to make it easier on themselves by nailing down a LAN spot now, as opposed to having to fight for that one available spot for the winner of regional playoffs. But we're talking about all of this. Match number 2 is loading in, and another thing that we had mentioned before anything had even started, Zephyr, was will we see those contests or not? Are they going to be too dangerous or not?
Well, when it came down to LVH right off the bat here, kind of giving things up particularly quickly after a rough start against Aftermath, were able to make their revenge a little bit later on, but it did come back to bite them, reducing them down to just a single member. Something to note about that composition, though, especially as we go into a contest, it is the only Horizon I think we are seeing today.
All right, well, it'll be exciting to see what the zone does for some of these teams as well as we load into match number 2 here. And I believe that we're also... Did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I was wrong. GoNext and LCDF, they love mommy just as much as I do.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? At least you caught it before we go in. We're back on Overlook, trying to see what happens now with this 50-50. LVH instantly lose 1. Aftermath now on the hunt here to try and clean this one up and have a nice solid start to match 2.
Well, I mean, Faves on that horizon from behind, launching forward off of this grab lift will potentially find the dominance that they need to at least start dropping, but Stalzy will follow up just as quickly. Now in that 1v1 scenario, just has a perfect line of sight for LVH. What was an escape first time around is a complete failure the second.
A little bit of a messy 50-50 there, but now Aftermath will have the entirety of Overlook to themselves. We get a look here at where that next zone is going to be shifting. Infinite looking quite comfortable, and Aurora, even though a team that's already qualified for LAN, it's a team we're still going to be keeping our eyes on because they've just literally dominated the region.
The crazy thing that I'll be watching more than anything is the fact that when a zone pulls this close to Aurora, do they stay? Do they actually go and play in the circle? For this roster, it always seems like they're the ones negative rotating out to pick up some of that extra KP. And I'll tell you what, even if they're making stake and claim to LAN already, they've got something bigger to prove. They got records on the board here. A potential victory today would, I personally think, at least someone can prove this to me, this would probably be the highest overall point standings we've ever seen from any roster ever.
I would not be surprised. We'll definitely have to see if, I mean, you are a stats guy, so I'm going to trust you on that one. We're going to say that it's 100% accurate, but for now, we're checking in with our match 1 winners in Alliance, hanging out over in Thermal, just getting themselves looted up here right now. And this goes back to what we were talking about before the match day even started. Alliance in Thermal is actually in a really good spot right now because they can rotate in a way that allows for their pathing to hit a big amount of evos along the way and potentially not as many teams. So by the time they do end up in the first circle, they are already ahead of everybody else, combined with whatever loot they're getting at Thermal. Before we left, we saw them already on blues. They could be set up for a really strong performance yet again.
Something to note about Alliance's position to kind of back up your point there too is the fact that with the contest over by Tree and GoNext taking both Lava Fisher and Mirage Etoile, there are actually just straight up less teams for them to incorporate and find their way into. So they get that extended rotation, they get that extra Evo, and they get to play around potentially those fixtures. For Aurora though, apparently they get to play around the entire north side, completely separate. They're just looking for the red flag waving in the air, that first potential shot of KP.
You know, you were wondering if they were going to have to leave to try and get themselves a little bit of an advantage here. They look pretty comfy right now. Meanwhile, everybody else starting to push into the survey area. Lots of poke damage being dealt right now. You see EXO up there, Infinite's up there, Made in Heaven is up there, Forge is up there. All of these teams, especially looking at Infinite, who was in 19th heading into the day, so they're right inside that 20th place bubble. This could be a massive fight for them.
Really good from above. A lot of the damage already provided by AURORA, but for most of these teams, they know that there's little pressure in survey camp right now. They can peek as much as they like. As a result, Vushi, new member, new friend info, is dropped down early. Notably, the caustic of all things for a roster that wants to play heavy zone, that is the worst pick to drop. The question is it early enough for them to pull the revive?
Is this an opportunity for the teams across the way to try and clean up on the duo as well? You see Passion UA wanting to get involved a little bit. We also saw Forge on the outskirts trying to make a move in and see if maybe they can clean anything up. But Passion UA are comfortable to hold this down right now. I mean, they've got the Watson helping them a little bit. You mentioned Vushi going down. Well, now he's back in the game, able to get a nice quick res due to their nicely positioned respawn beacon here. And this, at least they don't have to worry about that. People gave them a lot of time to get a reset here. I was wondering if maybe we'd see a little bit more of a push out of Forge once they made their way across the street, but everyone playing a little bit safer.
Speaking of safe, TSM Phoenix should find themselves in complete safety up towards this northern side. It isn't particularly where I think zone will, well, actually, now that I've got that zone 2 information in hand, the train line in this position in particular is starting to look a little bit spicier here. They might have to make their way a little bit more over towards the east where that train line really comes into effect, but that could be a really nice transition for them if they're able to defend the backside train line.
Meanwhile, we're checking in with Vex, who are finding themselves in this tunnel and in a little bit of a predicament, taking a little bit of damage, trying to get that scan information and backing away. And they're going to be going up against 202. So this is an opportunity for 202, yet another team that's on that bubble, to really make a big push here onto Vex, clear out their entire area in front of them when it comes to continuing on their rotations, as well as nailing down some KP.
Let's go this way.
But ultimately,
Or not.
they say, nah. The tunnel to be no more for them. They're going to find themselves potentially now actually running into Omit, who are just starting to enter there, notably in an advantage in terms of the perps. But, I mean, at least here's something to note. They've got the time. This is a large spread out here towards the west. And ultimately, if they want to extend potentially the rotation back towards Harvester, get themselves set up, it's not going to come back to bite them particularly, especially given the fact that survey camp as a whole and most of that north side, sorry, picked over. You're not going to get there any quicker and find yourself a happy home.
Yeah, and I love that we're getting this top-down view as well, because you can see that Alliance is doing exactly what we were saying they would do. They went through that choke by Mirage, tried to hit that Evo Harvester. They're now going through Landslide, where there is another Evo Harvester. They've got bins they can hit, all sorts of things that they can do, so that by the time they get to the next circle, they will be sufficiently Evo'd up. And you can see just how clear the space is ahead of them. Like you had said, Zephyr, because of the way the rest of the teams had chosen to drop and or do contest, not do contest, there's not a lot of teams in that southwest corner of the map.
LCDF, though, they want to come through behind here and take advantage of these teams lying in wait. Tolkien caught with his pants down here. Now a 2v3 situation. LCDF, they look so healthy here. This isn't even going to be barely a fight for them.
And LCDF are going to be super comfortable with that loot after going through Trials and Sky, and then you can see they've got these bins as well. I mean, they're content to have this fight. They don't really need to push anything too crazy. They now know they're safe right in on the edge of the zone, and we saw that TSM Phoenix was one of those teams that made an early play to try and get on this northern edge of the circle, so there will be at least one squad in their sights. And just now you see Zidane getting a little bit of information and scoping them out at the edge of the tunnel, but otherwise LCDF quite comfortable.
Well, something to note, though, is the fact that these Western-oriented or Southwestern-oriented teams still haven't made their fight yet. So while it may be good right now, even if they found some decent damage, We'll have to see what may come through. For Alliance, one of those rosters, they found their way into Grandma's house, and we've seen them take advantage of the fighting prowess of a man like Effect. Let's see what they can do now, pressuring this team from the inside.
I mean, they just might want to be going for all of these fights here today. You can see Effect in the kill feed getting post-kill knocked. You still have 2 up left on Alliance as they continue to just make this tear through the building. Team Portugal absolutely decimated in Grandma's house, but Vex heard the fight. They're trying to see if there's a third-party opportunity, but Alliance, those 2 didn't really take too much damage. They've got enough time to get Effect up. This might be dangerous.
This is a struggle, albeit it is a quick reset for Alliance. Vex know that it's too much time between them and the rotation they wanted to take advantage of. As a result, they're out backing away, far from dealing with the monster inside of the house there. The monster house, as some of the 2000er Gen Zers like me would remember.
No more Grandma's house, it's Monster's house now. All right, we're looking at it with LCDF still holding position in this tunnel here. They've decided to skirt past where TSM Phoenix are. Now they're kind of moving along the western edge, but they will run into Vex because this was Vex's escape route from Alliance, if you will. So now a little bit of back and forth, and Vex now pinched between these 2 teams. And with how kill hungry Alliance are looking, it's possible that Vex get pushed aggressively by them, and then they have to decide if they want to continue engaging with this fight or try to push up towards LCDF and try their luck with them. Oh, nope.
Tough tussle with that Bloodhound ultimate coming out there. That does dissuade some of the pressure that we see originally there. And the best part about this is it's just a ticking timer. It might not be the issue at hand right now. It does give space out to Vex, but if they just kind of wait this completely, they should be once again back at that advantage. Minor smokes though, and Isnan with great Hemlock in hand does do a good job. Clemmy though, with that cross, there's a slight separation beginning to form here.
Vex did a good job holding their position. Their Alliance ended up backing off back towards Grandma's house as they find another squad across the way. This time it's going to be Cold that they're exchanging a little bit of damage with here, but now Alliance, everybody fully decked in red, ready to go, as this is definitely what their plan was, taking this route along their rotations, because now they have an advantage in the majority of the fights that they will be running into. Meanwhile, Aftermath in a little bit of a fight of their own. Currently 2 still on blue going up against Made in Heaven behind these rocks. This is a good opportunity to make a push here.
We don't get to see wombos like this very often anymore, but it's held on for just moments ahead here. QUERER with that final scan, potentially the follow-up. It does come out, but ultimately it looks a little bit far from the likes of Aftermath. Now, climbing up to height here, a bit of a simple spread, but ultimately still finding the cracks to boot.
This is a really, really solid fight for Aftermath to be taking, whether they know it or not. They're the only team up there with Made in Heaven, so this is an opportunity to safely have this engagement without having to worry about a third party. But now they're down to just 1, and Bavis is on almost no health, able to get the shields back up and healthy, and tries to utilize that time and deal some damage, but it's not enough. Those knockdown shields providing the cover, and Aftermath go down. Made in Heaven able to save it here and hold their position on the north side of this circle.
That's going to be something big for Made in Heaven, ultimately, for a roster that's in 7th right now at 70 points overall here. They're one of the very few that could put up a point total today that would maybe even push them into LAN positionings, especially if they come out on top of those regional finals. For now, though, we'll jump on over to the bottom of our bracket. Cold alongside them, Alliance on the other side, poking the bear.
Well, Alliance have been having some really strong engagement so far, and it looks like they're playing a little bit of Ring of the Rosie. So let's jump into their comms and see how they want to handle this next push.
We're good. I'm picking the building, Yeah.
Scanning.
Next smoke, we need to make a run for it, guys. We need to make a run for it next smoke.
I'm with hackers. Learn hackers.
I'm coming.
I'm gonna cross and look for you guys.
They scanned.
Yep.
It's
They might pick out.
Listen. You guys need to cross to me after my smoke when I have it.
I'm crossing. I needed it.
Smoke that.
Alright. Yeah.
The other team, though.
The blood ult, careful.
Yeah.
Give me back.
Get to me.
Watch me, I'm cracked.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
I took out some.
I'm picking my son.
Yep,
Oh, it's a full team here. Play the right side, play the right side. We might need to
Careful
kill
here.
it. I don't have smokes right now, no smokes.
You want me to cross it? I'm gonna cross it then.
Yeah, do it.
I ulted them.
Scan in 8, scan in 8.
I need fucking bats, guys.
Take that.
I have only one. Drop your ult cell.
Scanning 2.
They're back on, follow me. They're fighting.
Okay.
Take the spot.
They're just fluid.
Go back. They just landed there. We can
The left.
That's good. Listen, they might fight again. The team that flew in might fight again. We can mirror them mid.
Okay.
One team died.
VexX, okay?
We have space above.
I'm gonna set this up in a second.
I'm not gonna have my ult.
3 minutes to clear this side. We need to clear this side and win the game.
I mean, Zephyr, talk about chaos here. You can see Alliance trying to decide if they're moving or holding the spot. They saw one team land behind them. Do they want to push that and try to take that fight right in the edge, clear out anybody behind them? It is LCDF, so this should be interesting.
Something I really like is that fight did come through ultimately, but they don't extend upon it at the right moment. So this is full reset for LCDF, but ultimately better positioning for Alliance here with that scan coming through and this heightened play. It's the perfect opportunity for HAKAS to take advantage from above. A bit of a minor smoke, but still the cracks that they need. We're just waiting now for the Craver and the effect to come out.
Who is finding these guns for this man? I mean, Alliance have a little bit of a height advantage. They have the sight lines and they have taken damage, but Alliance with the scan while also jumping down and keeping himself alive, giving himself some time to heal now. Unlucky trading off, making sure he can keep the damage off of effect while he gets the heals off. Unlucky. This is just the coordination right now on behalf of Alliance has been stellar.
Had they not been shot out by Made in Heaven over on the side there, that could have potentially been the end of LCDF, who in arguments did do a great job at defending. Now, ultimately, Omit and the rest of our rosters down here in Survey Camp are still trying to fight their way through some of that chaos you were talking about earlier. Light looking over the edge, smokes to boot, and now Alliance coming through from behind.
Alliance decide to leave their fight with LCDF and push in to try to take advantage of what's going on here, but that opens up LCDF to come in to their backs. Alliance are starting to fall. You can see Effect trying to do what he can with that Bloodhound ult, but they go down, and it's because there's just too many teams in this area. Passion, UA dealing damage, Omit going down, and it is LCDF at the back end, Zephyr, who now own this spot.
This is absurd. After all is said and done, only 3 teams remain. Passion UA, Alliance, Omit, and many more come down, or at least bite the dust there. LCDF with an immaculate call to follow through alongside what was that rotate from Alliance, knowing that ultimately they are completely undercover. Made in Heaven here on the other side. Cold, no viewpoint, no sight lines.
That was a tough call for Alliance to make too, because did they stay there and try to keep having that fight with LCDF where Made in Heaven was kind of being annoying and poking from the side, or did they push in and try their luck with all of the chaos in the building, knowing that LCDF could kind of mirror that and follow up? It was a tough position to move in, but now we're heading into the next circle. Everyone is starting to try and find some space to coexist. You see Cold on one side of this rock and LCDF on the other, both looking at Made in Heaven. So this is an opportunity for Made in Heaven, who's the only one 100% safe right now, to just wait for these two teams to fight it out.
It is a bit odd there, but the positioning ultimately is beginning to breed what is potentially JMW's end. Sitting on just 1 point of health, LCDF will ultimately go for the full set, but this is going to cost them their placement, even if they come out in second. Made in Heaven now, the cleanup crew to deliver from above. Drop down the gas.
This is what Made in Heaven was waiting for. They take the opportunity, the extra caustical, just because they can. Made in Heaven close out match number 2. I mean, once they nailed down that position, Zephyr, on the north side of that circle, they did such a good job of zoning everybody else away and being annoying enough that nobody wanted to take the time to cross the distance to even get to them, to have that engagement. They set themselves up to have such an easy win, but it wasn't an easy road to get there.
No, absolutely not. Especially when it comes down to playing that northern zone early and pressured out by so many of these other teams. Made in Heaven had to fight their way through, and ultimately, like you said, excellent pressure. We saw LCDF, Alliance, TSM Phoenix, and many more try to work their way out there from the west, and they continually applied the damage necessary to lay complete stake in claim. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we see these teams play out for just second place positioning, and Made in Heaven are rewarded from their efforts.
There were lots of really good decisions on behalf of a lot of the teams that were there towards the end. You know, even wondering, would it have been better for Cold or LCDF to try and maybe, because you saw spread out Made in Heaven more on the top side, was it maybe could you have caught one of Made in Heaven out on behalf of LCDF's side of things and tried to clear them out instead of allowing them that time and space to really hold that until the very end? It was also a little bit of a tough final circle there for those teams, but the chaos in the building right before all of that, LCDF, talk about right decisions that had gone well. They played that part perfectly. They waited until enough teams had gone out and then the remaining ones had taken enough damage that their cleanup, pushing in from a spot that they had to fight pretty hard for against Alliance to not die in that first engagement. I mean, another huge shout out to LCDF.
Yeah, potentially getting blistered there and on their way out, saved by the bell. They turn around and say, we've been given by the grace of the Apex Lords above us a second chance. And they take that one and they literally run with it down to the south into survey camp. And they absolutely destroy anybody and everybody there after keenly watching Alliance's rotation. They could have made the decision to compete against Made in Heaven, but ultimately something that we'll have to take a look at when it comes to the scoreboard is you get a lot of KP for following up on an exchange like that.
Okay.
Oh.
And there you go. I was wondering what we were going to see when it came to those teams that were getting in the early and mid game fights, but 16 kills for LCDF. You don't even need the first place finish. 25 points for a second place finish in match number 2. I mean, that is going to be putting them in a very comfortable spot heading into the third and final match on World's Edge. That's massive.
That is... To say massive is an understatement. Almost absurd there, wiping out quite literally a quarter of the lobby. The choices made, especially around survey camp, which we even missed it. Their cleanup of the northeastern or northwestern side, where they took out teams like TSM Phoenix, is another big piece of the chunk of that KP. So ultimately, they lead heavily here. Something as we take a look, though, towards the bottom of our board, a lot of familiar faces that tend to end up here, but ultimately, AURORA continuing to drop, well, maybe not the best of remnants here, 13th with 5.
I mean, what's crazy though, with AURORA doing not so well, it's opening up points for a lot of these other teams that need them, right? But some of them aren't able to do it. You see Infinite there, TSM Phoenix, you see 202. These are all squads that need to get points on the board if they want to try and make their way through to the regional finals. So they'll need to pick it up here in the next matches. But we'll continue taking a look at some of these stats, okay? And I'm talking the top 2 squads. We got Made in Heaven and LCDF, first and second place. And look at the damage difference here, Zephyr. LCDF, they were on another level.
This is absurd. If you're walking away thinking about roughly what sits at blue armor at 175 or 200 from the likes of potentially purple, you are still sitting at potentially the damage dealt of the equivalent of 25 to 29 players. They didn't wipe that many, but they did the equivalent damage of half of the lobby's health.
It's definitely an impressive performance. We saw just how looted up they were after their drop when they were in that tunnel, and they continued to utilize that well throughout the rest of the match, and now it puts them in second place overall, only 4 points behind Alliance, tied with Made in Heaven, who just took home the win in match number 2. So right now, those teams, the top 3, it's very tight, but they're looking really comfortable, and you can see just how quickly the points kind of start to fall off even after 5th place F.
It is a big drop, but that's good. Ultimately, for these teams that are a little bit slow to pick up the pace here down towards the bottom, who are also competing for a shot to avoid relegation, you know that you are still potentially able, with one great game, to put yourself into ultimately your best position of the split thus far. Things are shoring up, though, and if World's Edge is your best map, this is your last chance to do it.
You know, one other thing I noticed too is that Team Portugal's on the second half of that page with 7 points overall, and it's all placement. They have more placement points than AURORA, who's in 6th place right now. So Team Portugal needs to pick up that KP side of things, then they could probably put themselves in a better spot when it comes to those overall standings for the day. But that's only match number 2 in the books. We still have 1 more match left on World's Edge, 4 more matches left on the day. It's time for another short break, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Apex Legends Global Series, match day number 9, which means it is the final day of that round robin number 3 to find out who's going to be making their way into the regional finals. And Zephyr, man, they finally let me out of the basement, you know, and I'm back to see what's going on. Yeah, I know, they threw me in. They're like, match number 2, go away, Tiffany.
Don't worry, I'll have to take a trip down there as well as we make our way through today's matches, but at least they let me see World's Edge all the way through.
Yeah, something that's really cool is we saw that major alliance victory in match number 1, Made in Heaven kind of living throughout the chaos of Survey Camp. But for our final match on World's Edge, there's a couple things that I want to mention, Zephyr. Passion UA typically isn't the strongest performer on World's Edge, and currently they're doing it. They're in top 5, and they usually play way better on Stormpoint. This is a really solid showing for them thus far.
Hey, it's a solid start, but is it the question of one that will put them potentially in similar standings to what we saw when AURORA wasn't on top? And don't you worry, for all my AURORA fans out there, I'm still counting the moments here, but time is ticking and potential records are, well, left to stand.
And as we get our players locked into the dropship, we always want to look at what that plane line is going to look like for our contest. How long is it going to take for them to get there? We've got a relatively central northern zone with a pretty vertical plane line going from the south to the north. So they'll have a few moments to get to that overlook area. But for teams like Alliance at Thermal, Omit at Launchside, Portugal at Dome, they're going to get that early time on the ground to begin that journey of leveling up those Evos.
That's something that we'll continue to talk about here as we continue to decipher the remnants of Season 20 and what it means. But ultimately, we've got to start out here towards the overlooks. Once again, Aftermath in this initial contest. This time around, they're not 50-50. They're ultimately going to potentially fight this one out separate first, get themselves looted, and then approach the fight. Currently, it's 1-for-1.
This is kind of the typical strategy that I have witnessed from LVH. They'll take these buildings, look for anything that they can use. I already saw someone grab a Volt, which if I'm going for a contest, I want a Volt or something of the like, maybe a flatline to boot. But now you can see Vipes going for the upper area, looking for high ground, maybe give some good shouts to the team as Aftermath hits the scan and looks for a way to approach. But an amped up Sentinel off drop on White Shields, it takes a headshot at 156 to level them out.
Something you've got to fear hearing it above. Dropping that Sky Nade. That's going to give the potential cover QUERER needs to close the gap. Ultimately, with Havoc in hand, one of the best assault weapons in play. They're set up for good fights here, but breaking through this building and potentially catching them out is the question they need to solve here. Notably, Aftermath just starting to close the gap on each other.
Hanzo looking for some cheeky angles over there on the high ground, but it's Liffin making first contact, grabbing a knock onto QUERER, forcing it into that 3v2. Looking to just kind of finish that off, maybe a nice shield core swap. There it goes through, and now we've grouped up and kind of death ball forward now that they've taken control of this. But sometimes those contests just take way too long, and hey, we've got someone that maybe wants to put a little thorn into side of that. Or not. I mean, look, if you just want to be a little pest control over here and be like, hey, you know, what's going on over there at Overlook?
I
Maybe
like
not.
this.
Maybe
Shot
not.
at once. They are shot at one time, and they make the rotation away, which granted is actually completely smart. I'm not going to make fun of it too much.
No, it is smart. You're
especially
right.
after hearing the shots completely stop. That's actually not a fight you can take advantage of.
Yo.
So for pest control as a duo, they've got to go out in a way, but I hear your oohs, I hear your ahs, I hear what is a zone that looks oh so familiar. Folks on the northeastern side of the map, they are paying the big bucks.
So here's the deal. When we brought up the historical EMEA zones at the top of the show, Overlook, Epicenter, Climatizer, they were vacant, right? No ending there. And now you see at Overlook, the zones kind of intersect, which if you're going to make a prediction here, you're going to want to err on the side closer towards Overlook. LVH can probably play those buildings throughout this time. Aurora playing that heavy edge style, moving from Climatizer, isn't going to immediately drop down on Overlook. They want to go and get aggressive, get those Evos kind of sent up. But for the teams like Pest Control that were taking shots at Overlook before kind of running away, well, you know, stay healthy's here.
See if they can live up to the namesake as they begin to start this assault. Falcon looking for angles out and above. Maybe play to the advantage, but ultimately it's gonna be the full drop that ends up actually not in the knock. It's gonna be picked up by AJ ultimately in the end, but the follow through means likely just the complete end for Pest Control.
Okay, Mizuko, I see what you're doing. We still get that finish there. Pest Control will be the first team out of the lobby. But Vex, man, they're entering the equation here at No Name. The regardless thing about this is stay healthy. Did stay pretty clean on that engagement, but ArcStars will lead the charge, and well, here comes some stuns. Vex, though, do get that initial knock, and they make it too. We just need the final member, and then next thing you know, it's gonna be another one gone.
Another one gone, another one gone, another one bites the dust. Hey, but there's one that's potentially now on the escape. For Falcons, taking to the sky here will fly far and away from that source of action. For Vex, though, this feels like the days of yore. This was a team I used to attest and say, man, look how aggressive they get. Look at what they take advantage of. See how they play in Pro League along things like the lifeline of all pickups. And ultimately, they've had their roughest takes into this split in particular. But for now, start to show some signs of life on a day that they need to most.
Signs of life here. Na'Vi coming into this in 16th place about, so would love to see them kind of start turning the trend northward for them on their journey, but LVH also doubling down, making it into the tunnel, scans forward. Aftermath, justice for Bavis, man. You gotta hit the finisher. All right, I see you.
I like how I say aw.
I
I'm so
know.
sad. I'm so sad watching anybody go down. And all these teams, I have no particular favorites. So seeing the one down there and the struggles of Aftermath after what was their start, it's beginning to look a lot like game one. And it makes this Effie just a little bit sad. For Omit, they once again are pressuring an oh-so-similar choke. This time around, it ain't Portugal, or I guess last time it was Portugal. So yeah, same issue, same roster, same thing, and same struggles to push them away.
Yeah, with this zone being relatively similar to what we witnessed on match number 1, a lot of our teams are going to be on that same pathing. However, Team Portugal did play more of a central on this mountainside. They didn't really get into the choke. Off screen, Aftermath does fall, but I think this is smart, right? We have the Jenny, you've got the fences, and Omit. Typically, the decision they had made in match number 1 was actually not push through this choke. They doubled back and took the other where they fought against Alliance, which would probably be the similar journey for them here.
See how it ends up for them, as there is still a lot of time on the board, but once again, particularly quick finishes for some of our rosters. Things, though, have slowed down in EMEA when it comes to our starts, where we saw 16, 15 squads remaining walking out of our first game of the day on Zone 1. We are now down to 17 in second. So teams definitely beginning to start to feel the weight, especially when it comes to the placements and survivability that they need to have in, well, some of their final moments. Some of these teams just quite literally won't be playing again.
That's very true. Stay Healthy, one of those teams that did get eliminated, but Cold in 5th overall on the day, holding a choke. Let's go ahead and jump into a listen in with them and see what their plans are.
They're playing in tunnel, but that's not.
They traded! Fuck, did we go?
We can't. We won't make it around that way, Grace.
No, we won't make it.
The only way we make it is if we rip the Valkyrie and land like here, bro.
Yeah, look, this team's looking for it. This team's looking for it down there, I think. Yes, these guys are looking for it.
Yo, I think we mirrored them and pinched them.
There's no one in the farms, I don't think. They've just run across the whole thing.
There was a
You're saying no name, yeah?
Yes, no name, sorry, no name.
Yeah.
There was a yellow caustic skin, I think, default.
Yeah, they're running uphill.
Good shot, good spot. I'm gonna take space on this, actually.
I'm fucking getting gassed by everyone and their mom.
They're coming back down, they're coming back down.
Yeah, don't let them come down.
Caustic 50. The hard ulted, somebody hard ulted.
I hard ulted. They double blue.
I'm bang ulting this.
I'm selling. I'm ranging.
Take your store, Grace, if you want to.
I can't.
Be careful. I'm going back inside garage. A mechanic, sorry.
I destroyed that door.
I know you did.
You'll try putting nades in them.
They're hiding now. They're still blues, but we're gonna get
I'm gonna pick respawn beacon.
Yeah, play respawn beacon.
First off, Graceful's amazing, Zephyr. Second off,
yes.
Who hound ulted? It was me. I did. I hound ulted, and now we're doubling back. We saw some issues with Na'Vi earlier in the kill feed. Matafe going down, and well, Omit are sending it, taking apart kinda. They put the full, and they keep taking that pressure forward.
I mean, this is something that we heard from the perspective of Cold there just moments ago, trying to take advantage of some of the chaos out here and towards the village as a whole. Na'Vi, the ones to pay the price there, and as a result, will be forced to walk away from what is, I consider, a really strong power position in a zone like this. But we might be potentially getting our lower end train line finish. This is something that we saw a lot in the past.
Good shouts, because I absolutely love where Forge is positioning. We talk about those zones. They're not touching just north of Overlook, which is likely meaning the zone is going to bounce back to where Forge or Infinite has positioned themselves. GoNext, though, they are holding the front line for a lot of those congested teams coming out of No Name. And it's just a matter of time. But with Kaishi kind of having that black hole available for the next fight, Omit spacing out appropriately, looking to kind of carry that momentum forward. And, well, Hanzo, remnants of LVH there. Looking a little sad.
Like I said, I never want to see any one of these players down and out here. And for Team Portugal, they've got to find the damage they've been looking for all day. Instead, it's Postkill taking the major brunt of that one, and the follow-through from Sideshot on the other side. Just barely do they catch them out, and it's going to be Izidin from the final angle here to seal the deal, send QUERER down.
There goes Posty, and there's one more member, but if you're going to catch QUERER off guard, someone's going to have your back too. Zidon falls, and now Psychop and Kiner will have to clean this up. But they just want to get him inside, hold the door. But what do we mean here? You left just a shred of space, and now both members are down. GoNext, Team Portugal eliminated, and LCDF looking to have more eliminations. A very scary squad to come out in early games. They're so good at fighting.
Speaking of good at fighting here, Cold, well, they need to advance their tactics. They need to achieve the success that we've been expecting, at least from our listening here. Now against 202. JMW with first drop down and the KP to potentially boot. Missiles won't quite land, but I mean, this kind of pressure, that kind of assault, JMW didn't even need to be there.
But they do, and they finish it up quite cleanly. Miscom escapes to the north where Omit gets word of them. A full send will likely be the end of them, but there it goes. I was like, we're hanging on by a thread of 1 HP. But unfortunately cannot string things together. Turning over to TSM Phoenix, 15th overall on the day, sitting on that triple blue. We do have the Skyward Dive available should we run into too many issues going forward. Still needing to clear their backs with the ring. Well, it's calling.
Oh, they don't decide to finish off what could have been drops on the evac, and instead, yes, prioritize the rotate there. But that was great damage found on some of the extensions from Omit moments ago. We're gonna just take a look here as they land and see if that's the healthy position they place themselves in. For Phoenix, though, upon the tower, ahead of Aurora, Omit now. Yep, just as they land, beamed out.
So many evac towers and Valk ults towards that end game. You gotta have to flip the coin and see, will we successfully make this rotation? Well, for Omit, that's a no, as Zidon kind of puts the finishing touch onto that forge. They make their way, and a nearby respawn is going to have all the eyes on, but ExoClan still able to maintain that central train cart at the bottom between all of heavy-hitting squads like LCDF, Passion UA, and Aurora, building their Fire Beaver-like dam on the rocks above.
We'll see if they potentially can hold or the water will break here for Vex. Their push coming out from below after successful fights in the no-name now looks for potentially more. This is a sweep from behind from Clemmy that takes advantage of the lack of positioning.
Braz goes down. It's only a moment to go before we likely see the ending of the TSM Phoenix. I almost called him Phoenix Legacy again. Look, you can change your name, but when you keep Phoenix in it, I'll be tripped up for days. Incoming scan, trying to dodge through the arc stars, not even wanting to get stunned. Vex maintaining relatively healthy, and as I go to say that, it falls apart. We're baiting out our caustic ult, just trying to survive a little bit longer.
Bacco able to stick the bat for now, but with LCDF on the other side, and Kyrie looking to take advantage and make for revenge on the remnants of her teammates here. Go for the full assault. Trying to stay alive, though, with a Rolling Thunder, and LCDF moving in quite quickly. It's a single Kraber shot that seals the deal.
And sitting on triple red, the Evo armor advantage, the Kraber advantage. Now Graceful just ahead of them. Gonna have to watch out because we do not want to take a headshot. Psychop, though, will miss 6 more bullets to withstand, and they're just able to hold out the bottom of the ring. They are the final team making their way in. Their back is clear, and they only have to worry about the squad on their left of Made in Heaven, and then maybe even the remnants of LVH.
Woohoo! Struggles ahead here. Something to note is the Alliance down to what looks like just Effect. Alone there below, making the way back up. That's going to be an incredibly dangerous rotation, especially with Jay Hanzo just behind you on the other side of that ridge. We look, though, towards the train line. This is something that tends to stay in these zones here. Passion UA trying to fight for a position. If they can break through that line of space, might have something to poop. But granted, we're actually fairly decently still in zone for next pull.
Yeah, it's respectable, right? They don't want ExoClan to make a rotation towards them. And by continuously putting that pressure onto them, they want to force them into Forge. And as we check back in with Cold, it's just Graceful last standing, putting down so much damage, but it's just not going to be enough. They fall down to the final 7 as ExoClan joins them.
LCF making big sweeps to clear out their behind. They don't even turn tail towards the damage they've got to work with. Zidan with the drop of 2 and 1 stuck inside the pipe here will be more than enough for Kiner and Psychop to handle.
Can we just talk about the swing coming in from Zidane? Like, he starts the entirety of this fight, the confidence, the ability to just go in and throw it down. They were sitting on 16 eliminations coming into this map, and as I look at it, it was Zidane with 8 of them.
An absurd lead that starts in the hands of Portugal and continues to extend the ballooning KP of LCDF. And notably, we missed the Forge getting wiped by them too. Even if they go down here now due to a delayed revive, they have come up massive in the KP.
Massive. They had 16 last map. They're on 13 right now. You think back to the start of the split, Psycop was like, hey, can we get a coach? We need someone to help us get those placement points because we don't have any issues with fighting. And now AURORA, who are trying to get back into the top 5, look for another match day win, suss out the lone member of Alliance. They're going to send home. We're into the top 5. AURORA needs to get back to the top where they knowingly love.
Well, for them, it might be easier said than done here, but from this kind of height, they're at a advantage. It's going to come down to Passion and AURORA in potentially their final moments. LCDF, a last remaining member, stuck on the rock ahead here. If they get one nice knock drop onto UA, it would be incredible, but Sanya is picked off from behind on that extension. AURORA capitalizing on the rotation.
Okay, Hardeki with a wingman and a 3v2. Oireng goes down, doubling it to a 2-2. Artie, though, Passion UA, the biggest 1v1. Hardeki on the lifeline starts the resist. This is what we want to see, the hipfire coming through. Is this going to be an AURORA win? We've just got to finish it out. The punching comes through, but can we make it happen? We are getting worked here. It was so crazy, but in the end, we pull through in AURORA. They take map 3, the final map on World's Edge.
It can't get better. It just can't get better from Hardeki. That is the monster, the demon that comes alive. A single wingman in hand. The man even gets the chance to reload. He gets the chance to reload the weapon.
The Grim Reaper, man. The Grim Reaper in the Lifeline package. Like, what do you do? What do you do at that point?
The double shield swap.
Yeah.
There, by the way. One secured by Hardeki, one in response. The absolute sheer amount of success there. The man has to even opt to fist at a certain point because he doesn't even think he's gonna get the revive off.
Hey, look, that was overall one of the best 1v1s I've witnessed in a minute. And on the other side of that, you've got Passion UA, right? We kind of touched on it a little bit early on. We were talking about how their performances on World's Edge haven't been the strongest. But coming into match day number 9, well, they finally figured it out. That is what they need to set themselves up for such a successful 6-game series. Because keeping yourself in the top 5 and moving on to Storm Point, which you're historically performing better on, that's how you take a match day win.
Absolutely. And for them, especially since they're still set up there within the top 5, this kind of consistency on World's Edge is something that we will attribute to potentially their success today when we work our way into, like you said, the map that they are best at performing at. But to be honest, for me, it is LCDF. We watched them survive up to 3rd, which in itself is great placement, but the KP alongside it should set them above the rest.
Yeah, we did see that late res on Zidane coming through, but unfortunately got re-knocked. But let's see what their eliminations did. Another double-digit game for them. Puts them on 20 points. So congratulations, AURORA. Congratulations, Passion UA, on getting those placement points. But still, LCDF out-fragged once again. Went crazy at 20 points for them.
Just absurd here for a start for LCDF. This is something that you have to wonder if they can extend when we make our map switch up. But ultimately, Passion UA, AURORA, they're still there. They're chomping at the bit. They're right on the heels of the success to boot in our second half.
And for teams like LCDF and Alliance, they needed a strong performance in today's matchup. They're kind of just on the outside looking in from that top 8 bubble. But let's jump down to see the 11th through 20th placing teams. TSM Phoenix kind of running the gauntlet of that choke point outside of No Name once again. Omit do pick up some eliminations, but not going to be enough. And Team Portugal, they're kind of in that same boat as LCDF and Alliance, just trying to make it into that top 8. They want to go to LAN. So let's see them shake some things up on the latter half of our series. But we gotta get our host back. Get it back in here, Glitter.
I wish you could have seen my reaction to that final fight. I don't know what was happening. That was insane. I mean, huge win on behalf of AURORA, but like you guys have been saying right now, the highlight has absolutely been the Cité de France and their performance, their slaying ability so far. But now it is time for the halftime portion of the show where we get to hang out and talk about what's been going on in the first 3 matches of the day. We bring in a guest. This time we have Noises, who I'm very excited to bring in from the Full English. Noises, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. That was an insane endgame. I'm still trying to process what I just witnessed, to be honest. Yeah, that was crazy.
Well, you process it, because then we're going to ask you about it in just a little bit. But before we do that, I just want to get your thoughts in general. I want to know what you think the Season 20 meta has brought to the competition in EMEA here so far.
I mean, to be honest, in EMEA, it's been a bit weird because we have a lot of lifelines. It's kind of become meta here to play lifeline and get the package weapons. That's not really happening in other regions. But in general, I think the change has been really positive. It's really changed the game. POI balance now is a bit less sort of, the balance is a bit more even. So like the worst POIs have got a bit better, and the better POIs have got a bit worse, which I think is healthy for the game in general. And I'm honestly just loving the legend meta. I think it's so interesting. Like there's a lot more variety now. And like I said, lifeline being a thing is kind of cool. So I'm enjoying it.
I love Lifeline. I think it's cool too. You get access to the support bins. You're almost always guaranteed a bat. Every time I roll with Lifeline, I'm getting better bat packs, and it's just been really nice to see. But while we've got you here, Noises, I'm genuinely curious. This Pro League split has had so many changes thrown at it, right? Glitter kind of talked about Season 20 being implemented about halfway through. We've got changes all over the board. The contests that have been happening, you being a part of one of them specifically at Zeus Station for Stormpoint, how do you think this is one of the hardest splits that you've played in as a Pro League player?
Yeah, and I mean, to add to that, I also played like 3 or 4 match days on controller, and I'm now playing on MEK. So we've kind of been all over the shop, to be honest. Like this has been a crazy split. Yeah, definitely with the recent changes, that's kind of changed the game, and it's made the whole split feel different. But I don't really feel like that's been that big of a problem sort of for my team, or even for a lot of teams. I think a lot of teams kind of have adapted to that quite quickly because of the scrims and whatnot. But honestly, I think it's just like, it's sort of the sort of first split of the year is always the one where everyone's sort of like really intensely pushing hard to get to LAN. And once you've sort of got to that first LAN, it's sort of like you're kind of set up for the rest of the year. So I think that's part of it too. But yeah, it's definitely been a really interesting split. Yeah.
A tight race, definitely, for sure, but an even tighter one into today's matches. Let's take a look, of course, at our first 3 circles of the day, and let's get that special Noises Pro insight. We'll start off here in Game 1 with that Alliance victory. Something I want to ask you about is Team Portugal. They lose this height. What's the deal?
Yeah, I mean, their comp is not like amazingly set up for this fight on the height against Alliance, so I kind of understand why they went down to the cart, and they are playing here they're playing for luck, really. They're hoping Alliance chooses not to punish them and that Passion don't push up the hill into them. But to be honest, they did get lucky with the knock-on Artico by effect, but Alliance kind of play it smart and they play it slow, and they're inevitably pinched. Like there's not much they can do here. They're going to be forced on by Passion or Alliance to get second place. So in order for them to win, Portugal has to like kill the team that pushes them and then immediately armor swap and kill the next team, and they just don't have the resources or even the abilities really, like with these legend comps, to do that. And look, they're just in a tunnel. It's kind of painful to see it from that POV from Unlucky. He just absolutely destroys them in there. And yeah, they get the 3rd place, and then Passion managed to squeeze at the 2nd, and Alliance just played this really solid. You know, they played it smart. Very impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, it's something that starts our day, but you kind of make a choice of kind of playing for second, and that's what I want to ask about with this second game here. LCDF ultimately make this call to drop below. Where does that come from, especially from a pro mindset?
To be honest, this is the absolute right play by LCDF. Like, they understand that Cold is not in a really strong spot, and they also they kind of identify that Made in Heaven have won this game. Like, they understand that just by the spacing and the way the zone's pulled. So they choose, you know, let's just take this by surprise. We have this opportunity here to like make a play on Cold, and they just go for it, and they just do it extremely well. They're a really smart team in terms of understanding when they have an advantage, and they just push their advantage right here. So they know, like, you see Zidane peeks it here. He realizes they're on the low ground. They have the height. They can't win the game. They decide, okay, let's play for second. Let's get 3 kills. Who knows? We might kill them instantly, armor swap, and we can even fight Made in Heaven. And, you know, this swing by Cyclops is really impressive. It's does a lot of damage here. Spins around and then kind of cleans up. Really good. And, you know, Made in Heaven get the free win, but they deserve it with their positioning. So, yeah, it's fun to watch.
Of course, and ultimately for LCDF, it's not something that stops here. As we work our way into game 3, they're just as successful in terms of picking up the KP, but this one is a story of Aurora here. Talk me through it.
Okay, I mean, this is just an Aurora classic, isn't it? Like, they have all the height, they have like red armors, they have wingman, they have Hardeki on lifeline. It was a little bit sloppy. I hate to say it, it was a little bit sloppy, but to be honest, Hardeki stays so composed in this 1v1 here at the end. So Sanya gets taken out by the solo. That's not ideal. That honestly made this game a lot harder for them. They could have potentially won it. Ninem's jumped down. This is, again, like, they have to chow this guy here. This makes sense. Gets the armor swap. And then here comes Strafey on the Bloodhound. This is cool to see. A little Hardeki versus Strafey 1v1. It's so hard to stay this composed in this moment, and you see Hardeki's just like patiently hitting every shot. Strafey gets the armor swap. This is crazy. He gets the reload, and he's still composed enough to just hit these shots here. It's crazy. Just Hardeki things, I guess.
It really was just a Hardeki things. And now we get a look for the first time at the series results here so far on the day. This puts LCDF in first place at 47 points. Obviously, they've had a phenomenal performance here today so far, Noises. But any of these other teams, do they jump out at you, or who do you think could potentially step it up in the next 3 matches? Whatever you want to say.
I just like, I'm really enjoying watching Made in Heaven right now, I can't lie. And also Passion UA, they're the 2 I really want to call out. I feel like they're both playing the game fundamentally well. They clearly have very strong IGLs, and they're playing together as a team, and they're not necessarily the teams that everybody looked at going in to be strong, and I'm just really impressed by the way they're playing. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, great call outs on those squads and great interview, Noises. Thank you so much for jumping on and chatting with us. It's always a pleasure to have you. It's time for us to say goodbye to you for now, though. So thank you again.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
It's always nice when we can bring our players on to chat with us about that. And he was right. That was an insane 1v1 at the end of it. So if you somehow are just joining us and you only saw the highlight, go back and watch the VOD and see how that whole thing played out, because match number 3 was incredible. But if you've also been hanging out with us for the last week, then you know last time around we told you about our new Twitch drops. Well, we're going to tell you about them again right now, because we always have something for you at home. Right now, you can tune into any Apex Legends Twitch stream with drops enabled, and you'll be able to earn a holo spray all while watching your favorite streamers all season long. You'll notice on here, the drops are changing every 2 weeks, so you just have to tune in every 2 weeks, and then you can end up with 6 new holo sprays when it is all said and done. And these are really, really cool, okay? You'll be getting free stuff all the way until the first week of May. Big fan. We were talking about it before the show. Big fan of that bleep one. They're all very, very cute. But we must continue on with our competition here today, which means, Zephyr, it's time for you to take a break. So enjoy that while Tiff and I start switching our focus on to the next 3 matches, different maps, Storm Point time. Tiff, for match number 4, this should be exciting.
It should be, right? I personally enjoy Storm Point games. It is my favorite map to watch and cast over at this point in time. And just seeing the shakeups of what we witnessed in World's Edge, teams that needed to perform to really bolster their positioning in that top 8, LCDF, Passion UA. It's like, how do you carry that forward? And then even looking in when we saw the series results, Alliance hitting that top 3, well, they haven't won a match day yet. And, you know, if they're going to take one, match day number 9, that's the best day to go go ahead and start. And as we look at our map rotation moving on, you know, Alliance do win map number 1, Made in Heaven. Good shout out by Noises saying that he loves watching them play, and then Aurora. But then we go to those final circles that we've historically seen. Now, Glitter, we've got to get your opinion on these because we know I've manifested a lot of zones, but what are you thinking of here?
If you have the power to do that against Tiff, your accuracy has been scary so far when you do decide to call out those zones. We'll notice as these continue popping up, though, that we haven't had any in quite a few areas. We're looking at no checkpoint, no Cascade Falls, no down beast, no launch pad. So there's opportunity for a lot of these central zones to potentially end up happening, not even up at the wall. But also, we mentioned it when we were talking about World's Edge. Sometimes that's a good thing for these teams that land in those areas, looking at Forge, GoNext, TSM Phoenix, 2 of those teams being teams that need to get some points on the board. It gives them an opportunity to do nice, slower rotates, set their pathing, and get those Evos leveled up.
Exactly, and as you look at this, good shouts there. Made in Heaven, they don't have Red Dragon in this lobby day, so it will be uncontested at the wall. But for contests, look down south, right? Coastal Camp, Team Portugal will likely get Coastal to themselves. I'd imagine 202 is just going to go ahead and straight take Echo, but just we will see some congestion there. Pest Control taking on Vex at Devastated Coast. Now, we did see a lot of those historical zones that favored Echo HQ, but that was back when Season 19 at the start of the split. Only since then we've seen one pull Echo. Now going through Legend Select, we likely won't see too many change-ups. I have been witnessing maybe one team kind of trying to play Catalyst on Storm Point, but still, you know, she's pretty much, I don't want to say like dead and gone, but kind of in comp at least.
No, I don't know if anybody's like 100% ever fully gone. How long was Lifeline gone for? Now she's back. You know, you can never count out the legends, but I do agree we're seeing a lot less than what we saw when it was that massive Catalyst meta, especially here on Storm Point for those super open final circles. Now there's other ways for our players to be handling that thanks to the addition of these perks, and they've completely changed the game. We even heard Noises talking about it in the interview, him saying that the legend meta is so different right now and he loves it. We're getting that variety. We're getting the teams having the ability to not have to have a set meta. They can kind of try things differently, tweak it, whether that's a different perk tree or a different legend in the trio edition than what we've seen so far. I mean, depending on the day, we've seen Fuse get brought out. We've seen Maggie get brought out. We see a lot more crypto in EMEA than we do maybe in NA. So it's really fun right now.
It is 100% fun. I'll double down on that. And it gets me excited for what we're going to see moving towards those international scrims and land. But we get a good look at where our first 2 zones will be pulling. To that intersection toward the right side of Stormcatcher, Infinite landing there, being able to take a lot of space. This is going to be a great priority zone for Alliance, who can just kind of drop down and clear out that eastern side and walk into those buildings. And we've seen a lot of zones end kind of towards that side historically, and we'll just have to keep our eyes on that. But for Pest Control, I'm just curious. I see them over towards just a no-name POI. I respect that, right? And it gives them a better rotation towards zone.
Yeah, playing it a little bit safer here, and they can maybe hold down that area and get some placement points on the board. I'm also keeping my eyes on Cold, obviously a team that we called out at the top of the show because they are right on that 20th place bubble when it comes to making it in to regional finals. They're now in a really solid spot when it comes to these rings, as long as they can handle any pushes that might come through Command Center. I think it was yesterday when we saw them struggle a little bit against 07 in the push through that area, but now they don't have to worry about them, so maybe it'll help them at least be able to clear out that space. They will have to figure out their loot situation as we check in on a Hardeki.
Just
Getting
Hardeki
a little bit
things.
of Luke. He's just hanging out.
Just
Doesn't need
Hardeki
anybody else.
things. I love that Noises said that because I was looking towards the Legend Select. I still think Hardeki might have been the only one to lock in Lifeline. We've seen Matafe kind of dabble with Lifeline on Stormpoint, but I'm pretty sure they went the route of Caustic. Now moving towards them, a team that has historically had relatively consistent performances, but today really hasn't been their strongest start. Still trying to break into the top 10. But I will say here, Lauren, with LCDF kind of kill sponging a lot of the lobby, there's so much room for teams outside maybe 6th place to move up on. It's just going to take one good game.
That is true, and one good game will end up having massive implications with how many of these teams are super close to continuing on in the competition or to just barely missing out on it. So there's still an opportunity here for what, like 17th through 22nd really to do anything based off of one pop-off moment, as we are now checking in with Na'Vi, seeing what they've got going on for a little bit of a rotation. We're seeing a lot of these teams starting to cluster up and trying to find a little bit of safe space. Everybody really wanting to get in early into a Stormcatcher, knowing that it's going to be high priority. These Watson fences will come in clutch for a lot of the teams that do have a Watson in the trio, though.
Yeah, this is just not one of my favorite places to hold. I feel like this area of Stormcatcher, just playing south of it, is one of the first places that will get sent. And that's just tough, right? When you get there early, trying to stabilize in a position and fend off any known pushes, we'll keep an eye on, because you've got Phoenix and TSM Phoenix kind of holding on with white shields. And you made good call outs. We've got Infinite that land Stormcatcher. They still were able to get on to at least those blue Evos. Emit moves in cold. Alliance dropping down still near a little bit by Thunderwatch, and Made in Heaven having a really solid day showing, dropping in, not going for top of Stormcatcher, dropping down, which gives Infinite essentially free shots onto them, but they stay pretty healthy considering.
Let's go that way.
Made in Heaven, the team that Noise has pointed out as the one who's just playing fundamentally good Apex, and that's mostly down to the fact that they've been doing a solid job with their positioning. This time around, though, when they land, instantly lose two. It's down to just Cinetic, who's going to try and escape here as Pest Control find themselves in a spot to really get some KP and additional loot now, which is massive for this duo.
Yeah, so that happened. I think anytime I say someone lands off a rotation, they're pretty healthy. Well, yeah, at least they're not down and out, shall I say. But we do get some KP, like you said, for Pest Control. Cinetic kind of stuck between a million teams over there. And for GoNext, looking for some positioning. And they thought, you know, oh, Mit's building looks really nice. Tolkien already down, and a frag grenade's gonna force Kaishi out. But Light do have all members up, and it's just a matter of time before they can fight through the fire and flames to kind of finish off what they started.
I love that reference. just want you to know that's a great reference. As we're taking a look here, Kraber in the hands of Vushi. We're doing it.
No,
Playing
send
it safe. Do it.
They're just gonna ping him out, take their head off.
There
Okay,
we
a collat. We take it. I think they were waiting for a little bit of that 3-2-1 action, and Bambino goes down.
That was beautiful on behalf of Vushi, punishing GoNext. Massive. I mean, clearing out that space. Vushi utilizing those Kraber bullets to the absolute maximum. And should be able to continue kind of just being annoying on that roof right now. A lot of these teams will have to choose how they want to handle it. You can see Alliance is across the way, Omit getting themselves up, back, and ready to engage here. But once that Kraber's gone, we're gonna have to see these pushes being made, and it'll be interesting to see how Alliance handles it, because they have been looking good, or at least Effect has been looking good so far.
Hear me out. If I'm Omit at that point, I am sending a gift basket to Infinite for those Kraber shots. You have completely cleared out my building for me. So as that zone pool comes in, Omit really benefiting from that. But you keep your eyes on Aftermath and Cold, right? Just on the outskirts, holding kind of near that mountaintop. We want to clear out the outer path for Na'Vi that are really outside the top 10 right now. Just give Kinda a wingman at this point and send him off to see what happens. We saw when Hardeki used it. It was pretty nice. We just need one for Kinda, all right?
Now we get a little bit of a view here on LCDF right above EXO, who they're looking down upon, trying to deal some damage. As I say that, we came in as Fricks goes down. LCDF deciding that this is a perfect opportunity to push up and continue this. And why wouldn't they? They've been aggressive all day, and it has proven to be successful every single time. Now they know that this could be some more KP on the board, which is that's just the way they've been playing here today. Hyper aggressive. It's worked out. The chase continues. You can see that Zidane is trying to see if he can maybe clean this up. Is it worth this much?
Oh, it's worth. We won all the eliminations here. And Xeon is one of the quickest players out there to be able to get to the blue Evo. And now we're sitting on purple. Just, you know, maybe one more team fight away from getting towards the red, because if they can take out this squad ahead of them, they double back, they grab the Evo cash behind them, and it's going to be Psychop that kind of opens it up. Sure, they've done a lot of damage, but we're claiming Thorfinn for this point.
LCDF, we're hungry. They get one that they were hoping to get, and now, like you said, they've got this western side pretty safe into themselves, back on board with Alliance, seeing what they're going to do as they start making their rotation south. It's Team Portugal in the crosshairs of Effect. The alternator been putting in work all day in the hands of Effect, especially every time this Bloodhound ult has been popped. More damage. Oh my, Effect!
Look, you gotta do it to him. You've gotta do it. And if you've got the disruptors, the alternator will go crazy, doing a lot of damage for the squad. They eventually finish it off unlucky, getting that knock on to post kill, and we just keep going. Next for Q, we just gotta see QUERER. He's able to get the trade out onto a Lucky, but when a 1v2 happens and you've got Effect in essentially the same position as Obi-Wan historically, we're just looking for a clean reset now that we've got Team Portugal evicted from the lobby.
They've got some space to work with there as well, so Alliance will be very happy with that fight. Now owning that northern area of the circle. Meanwhile, AURORA also wanting to get involved in some of the action. Pushing up here, trying to go for a little bit of a chase. UAIM maybe seeing if he could clear out some of 202, but not wanting to push it too aggressively, knowing how split the crew is, but also not wanting to waste this ultimate. In the end, they end up backing off, at least holding out this area for now.
Yeah, it's tough, right? I really don't want to see them push into Spider's choke. So I want them to maintain their ground. They've done enough. Yes, you want those eliminations, but at that point, giving up the position that you're currently holding isn't necessarily worth it, because there's only so many ways that 202 can get back into zone. But doubling down here, going for that Evo cash will at least allow 202 to go up on triple purple instead of pushing an issue against a team that's sitting on triple purple already. But this isn't going to be easy, right? The remnants of EXO clan, they're down to a duo. We saw Thorfinn go down earlier to LCDF, and that's just on the midst for him.
I think that means the one solo left in EXO is able to at least get one back in to try and hold out against everybody, but now they might have to come in up against Vex, who's definitely going to try and gatekeep this area if they can, knowing that it is highly likely some teams will potentially be rotating in to that choke. It's time to call in the Rolling Thunder. Nice shots out of Clemmy there as Vex look to get a little bit aggressive.
They do, and honestly, 202, well, you called it. They got Thorfinn back. They don't get the Evo cash. They pop an evac tower line right in front of Vex, and even then, we still don't full send despite getting some shield cracks. You have to keep an eye out because Rakafaka, between pretty much a glass cannon, does get back to full form, joins up, and allows them to take some pressure off of Miscum. But with Fako on the lifeline, we've seen just how nice it can be to stabilize in fights and keep yourself in full heals, but the hunt, it comes through and we swing. Rakafaka's the first one to fall, and we're looking for the rest. The jump comes in right into the Bangalore smoke. It doesn't matter. It's not going to work for you. You can't 1v3. It doesn't matter. 202 eliminated.
Massive fight for Vex, but I was worried that AURORA would have heard this due to their position and try to push it. It's exactly what they want to do. They've got a shield advantage as well, and if they can try and clean up this third party, they're absolutely going to go for it. Pings come down, trying to nail down exactly where the enemies are. The wingman back in the hands of Hardeki. Will he be able to make another clutch play with it?
Look, we've all seen this before, and we all know and love how it ends, but AURORA, they go to take that fight and immediately say, nah, not worth it. Popping the grav cannon back to get towards Stormcatcher. And instead, from here, we can take our position towards the south, put pressure on pest control, hold out EXO clan. And even though UAIM doesn't make it, Hardeki falling low, falling, and now AURORA, maybe you should have stayed and cleared out the south side. That is such tough. You feed face straight to Na'Vi.
Oh, that was rough. They definitely hoped that the third party would go faster. They probably stayed a little bit longer than they would have liked. By the time they come back, there are just people waiting for anyone making that late push in, and now they go down. Vex could potentially face the same fate because now Navi's looking this direction. There's a QUERER in the hands of Matafe, and they are looking the way of Vex.
Those aren't gonna connect, but we still have 8 more bullets to work with here. And I know we've seen some crazy clips out of Matafe, and he does lock in the lifeline. So I misspoke when we were in character select. It looked like Caustic, but joke's on me. Matafe does stick with the lifeline for Stormpoint.
I love to see it because we've seen just how useful those reses mid-fight on behalf of Lifeline can be, because it's not taking her out of the fight. It takes just a moment to get those tippy taps out. Now those arc starts coming through as he looks for more. QUERER connects. Beautiful shot on behalf of Matafe. They're trying to push up now, see if they can just clear this out, clean up the KP.
And they are cleaning house on the south side now, setting their sights onto Vex. From then on, we need to keep our eye out. There's teams that have been occupying all of the areas, including ExoClan, but kinda in Beast of the Hunt doing absolute work. And I love the shouts on Lifeline, not just the reses to get people back up on their feet, but it's that care package weapon that comes in with the purple shield perk, right, on that perk tree. And that is immediately what our pro players are locking in. And, well, if the odds are ever in your favor, you're gonna get a wingman or a QUERER, and you gotta put it to good use. And since Matafe is the IGL of Na'Vi, he'll typically anchor back, and that QUERER is going to work to their favor and their playstyle, allowing Kinda and Tyler to just full send.
Yeah, that definitely worked out in Navi's favor. They now own that south side of the zone. They won't be safe for long, so they'll eventually have to push him, but you know that Duo and ExoClan was not going to push it unless they absolutely knew that they were going to come out on top. So Na'Vi not only get the extra KP and the extra Evo, but they're now safe and continue northward towards the next circle. Meanwhile, LCDF still trying to push in on this aggressive tear that we've seen them on here all day. Looks like they might be finding an individual player caught out here. Zidane making sure that's cleaned up. That's made in heaven. Synetic getting cleared out.
Eliminated outside the top 10, and LCDF carry on with the eliminations, looking to bounce back onto double. But ExoClan take a rotation and omits like, no, you're not touching our building. We've already had to defend off against one team. We're not scared of another. But for Na'Vi, having to navigate the grounds just underneath Stormcatcher, Passion UA falls to Alliance off screen, but can Na'Vi stabilize here? They do so. The scan comes through. It's going to give away their location, and you know LCDF wants a piece of this, but kinda, we can't fall here, and we do. It doesn't matter. TSM Phoenix eliminated.
Na'Vi handle that push incredibly well with players on both sides of them, able to fend them off and survive. Now they've got a little bit of time and loot. That smoke going to provide some soft cover for a little bit. They know that they do have to kind of look above them and see if there's anything they can do before they continue moving on. But hopefully some of those teams across the way will kind of clear that up. You can see just how low Kinda was before they're able to get those heals off. And when this next circle shrinks, Tiff, things are going to start to get crazy. The amount of people that are holding that western edge, just those corners of this building to try and stay safe when they all have to push out, it's going to be insanity.
It's tough, right? And Forge is gonna have such a tough rotation. We don't have Caustic ult. I'm looking towards Slayers. Do we have the Skyward Dive, and are we willing to risk it? Cold just kind of anchoring down as we got a really good look at where the teams were laying. LCDF still underneath, and Na'Vi go under fire once again, trying to defend themselves against Infinite. We do make that happen, but when you've got your lifeline down, it's hard to kind of get that position moving forward, and just a rogue wingman in the hands of QUERER is going to end Na'Vi's run.
That was a great opportunity seized there by Aftermath. Na'Vi now getting cleared out. You can see LCDF all on red, starting to make their push in, dealing some shots across the way. Stay healthy. Now eliminated. Beast of the Hunt still active on behalf of Kiner. They might be able to use this as they push up. Now seeing that Rolling Thunder coming through. something that they have to worry about. But you did point out Cold anchoring on that north side of the zone. They've had a solid position this entire time, but how under-shielded will they be in comparison to everyone else that's now fighting?
It's going to be tough. We always know that LCDF will be sitting on triple red, and job's not done for them as we enter the end game. We're not on to double digits just yet, but we're getting closer. Full sending onto Alliance. We're losing out on Kiner. So the duo has to clean things up, and Zidon's not going to be able to live here. We dive out into the zone. We go down. Hack is in effect. Need to try and recover here. Can we get the res onto Unlucky before Omit full sends? And we were talking about the Omit effect. And coming in with the EVA 8, hip firing on the Hemlock. They do what is needed to be done. Yeah, they get stunned up, but they're hiding out in the bank smoke, looking for shield core swaps. And we turn back to Cold. You asked what their Evo armors were going to look like. Graceful, the only one on blue, but have no fear. The spacing is still okay, but the pool is not in their favor.
It definitely should be interesting once they have to drop down from this height. They're obviously going to see if they can maybe do a little bit more damage here to their side. That's Forge hanging out in the wings, and they know that Forge is right behind that vehicle, so Cold is going to try to be as annoying as possible. Meanwhile, Omit can kind of just watch this happen, not to mention, look at the shields on Omit. They are in a fantastic spot.
Yeah, this is nice. They've got a lot of space. They're working with 2 trees. The Evo armor's looking nice, but this end game here is all about kind of realizing, do we play for second? You've got the EMP coming through, the stuns aboard, and Cold trying to wait before they have to jump down, and now into the final 2. Can Cold get across this open space without taking too much damage? The passive of Bangalore is going to identify where the players are. Lufka pops Beast to the hunt, but it's Light that takes a lot of damage. Lufka's going to be able to suppress a bit, join back up alongside Light and barricade forward.
Cold has handled this so well, and Mid just down to 2 with no shields. Lufka even lower. Light now, oh my god, just 1, and it is Omit somehow clutching up against Cold in those final moments to take home match number 4. That was insane, Tiff.
Look, Rafi said it first, I'll say it again. It is the Omit effect coming into map number 4 in 7th place. So we've already started the climb up. We were talking about it taking only 1 good game necessary to put yourself into the top 5. And if with Omit up to match day number 9, their best performance finish has been 3rd overall, which has happened twice on 2 different match days. So can we improve upon that? That's what I'm waiting to see.
You know, I'm going to be interested to see what the numbers say when we get to those series results, because I want to see where some of these teams ended up on the KP. We saw Cold holding their spot for so long that they're definitely obviously going to have the 2nd place placement points, but where did they end up? Were they able to kind of be annoying and clear players out as people were starting to rotate in? We saw just how well they did against Forge in those final moments. So they definitely got some points on the board there. But was that a situation that was similar to what we saw with Made in Heaven when they held the northern side of that zone that we saw in World's Edge? And it was more about the placement than it was the KP. Do we get some serious numbers out of LCDF still on their tear, running through people and kind of just killing as they went? Will we see some of those numbers in favor of Alliance as well? There was a lot that happened in that first Storm Point match, and the ending was not what I expected, Tiff. I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, I like those zones. I really do. They're some of the funnest ones, and I love the shouts, right? You think to the top 3 teams of that match, Cold, Omit, Forge, they are all right next to each other on the leaderboard, moving into map number 4, sitting 6th through 8th, Cold with 26 points, and then you've got Forge with 15, so about 10 points separating them. But was the ending enough? Because we talk about the placements points. Obviously, it's 12th for 1st place, 9 for 2nd, 7 for 3rd, but you've mentioned it. What did those eliminations look like? Because then it's like, well, LCDF, look, they were looking down the barrel of double digits yet again. Kind of crazy. When I checked in on Zidon earlier, I think he was running about a 5 or 6 KD early on in the first season of the split, like the first half. I think he was averaging what, like 8 eliminations a game? Crazy.
I mean, not too shabby. Crazy. Not too shabby if you've got one of your players that's just popping off. And talk about the time to do it too. We've mentioned this a few times, but obviously last play day here of the regular season for these teams. So anyone who is looking to try and scrape a few more points here and there, in whatever way they can. Today is the day to do that. Every single kill will count here today, and we're seeing just how seriously some of these squads are taking that, because even yesterday we saw how slay heavy some of our teams are, deciding that that's where the majority of their success will be found. And we've seen it happen in previous play days in general, even from last weekend in NA, the likes of Complexity, a squad that, you know, doesn't even take home a win, but then they win the day because of that aggression. So it's actually definitely a strategy that these teams can be using here.
It really is. And granted, now that we've moved on to the very back half of our series with only 2 matches to go, what is it going to look like? What kind of performances are we going to need for those teams that are outside the top 3? Or what do you need to do to unseat LCDF? Because all they've been doing is extending that point differential, making it really challenging for some of these squads to surpass them on the top of the leaderboard.
And it feels like it's because they want that land spot, right? LCDF was in a good spot in heading into today to be good for regional finals, but they weren't there yet for playoffs, and they want to solidify that. We're wondering about kills. We've got 11 for Omit with the win. That's a nice, solid win for Omit, but it's matched by 11 kills on behalf of Na'Vi down there at the bottom, Tiff.
Look, that's impressive, right? If only they could have stayed alive a little bit longer to get some of those placement points, and LCDF walk away with 8. Alliance take down 2 full team squads and get 6 eliminations on the day. So it's kind of spread out throughout the half, but Cold pick up 5 of their own, and I can only imagine that for Emit, Cold, Forge, it's going to shoot them up just a little bit further in that overarching leaderboard, despite only getting 1 elimination for Forge. Let's jump on over to the back half to see what that 11th through 20th is going to look like. And TSM Phoenix walk away with 1 Made in Heaven after kind of a very tough rotation in to try and get some space. Fall early. Aurora looked a little bit lost south of Stormcatcher, trying to take a smart fight for them. Just kind of put them to a late entry on that engagement south of Stormcatcher. So that was really tough to see. And for Team Portugal, well, we saw them go out early to effect. And what will those last 2 games look like for them?
I mean, even taking a look at Pest Control, they were someone that when we saw the overall were struggling, and then they were able to take out Made in Heaven on that rough rotation like you were saying. But now here's a look at the series results where everything stands so far on the day, and you can see just how crucial the kills are for LCDF right now. 58 points overall, 11 points above Alliance, so keeping themselves in a nice strong position here. But look at the kills in general. Everyone is trying to slay out in order to stay in top 3 for Cold is massive right now.
Yeah, that's going to be a really strong performance for Graceful and the crew. Alliance, they're getting closer to that first match day win, and honestly, 11 points with 2 games to go, that isn't going to be such that stronghold that you need. LCDF needs at least 1 more solid performance to really put a chokehold on the top of the leaderboard. Omit, though, we've talked about it, their best performance is being a 3rd on a match day. Can we best that? Can we get the points needed to unseat Alliance for 2nd, or maybe even double down and go for a 1st place? Even with Passion sitting in top 5, we talk about needing the points that they can get to make that top 8 for LAN. So you don't have to go into the regional finals in a position where you have to win match point, because all stakes are going to be at the highest next week, and you don't want to lay it on the line. You do not want to leave it to chance. Anything could happen on match finals, and it gets too crazy for me.
Well, our teams only have 2 more matches on the day to do something big and solidify their spot in the competition before we get into match number 5, though. It's time for another short break, so don't go anywhere. You're watching the Apex Legends Global Series.
it's time. 2 more to go on Storm Point to decipher who is going to be making it to regional finals next week, and even on stapling their position inside that top 8, if you can do it. Also, welcome back, Zephyr. Got to hear the thoughts on the last match, since you really were just kind of from the back watching.
Yeah, I've checked it out. I was sitting down in the basement getting my taste of the action, but ultimately at the end of the day, it was to no surprise, I think, that we see Omit come out on top of that one, especially with the remnants being that of Cold, right? And personally, you kind of gotta give the credit to Caustic where it's due there in its moments. Even when you're not doing the damage, it's still ticking through whether you like it or not. Granted, I do think we should start to talk about some of these other teams. I know the big take right now is regional finals and some of those who are looking to go to LAN, but as it currently is, the teams on the bottom are still on the bottom.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I'm looking at 202, Stay Healthy, TSM Phoenix, and they're currently sitting in 17th to 19th retrospectively. So a little tough, right? And it is kind of challenging knowing that you are potentially facing relegation. You have to go through the qualifiers, run the gauntlet just to get back into Pro League after that. And let's be real, you really don't want to have to deal with that if you really can kind of not.
Yeah, ultimately for those teams, they need to shore up in one of these last 2 games to push past somewhere close to 11th or 10th place, or their day is done. For Cold and Infinite respectively, who coming out of this were somewhere around that 19th to 20th place, they are still within that top 10, albeit Cold now a little bit higher due to their position, and of course Infinite slowly starting to fall off down there in 10th overall. Things are still better than those who need to surpass. So ultimately, it needs to be one of those 2 positions taken away by someone down below. I don't know who's going to be, but it's got to be one of them dropping what could potentially be Infinite or another if they at least want to avoid relegation. And god dare they try to find their way into regional finals.
Speaking of regional finals, and then we think of LAN, it's like all of the different legend compositions that we've been seeing, we've been hearing about. Noises was chatting about it. Let's go ahead and turn our tides to APAC North, because the winning team comp that we witnessed was so different, right? Reject Winity asserted their domination on the regional finals for APAC North, taking home 3 wins out of 4 maps on Wraith, Caustic, Mad Maggie.
Now, this is something that gets aggressive and in your face. We've seen the Mad Maggie show a little bit of presence in the Assault class, and usually is usurped by the fact that Bangalore holds as much weight as she does. But the thing that stands out to me is the Wraith. This is something from the days of yore, the year 2, where we saw that super combo between the likes of Wraith and Caustic that reared its head many a times here, giving them double sources of mobility alongside that Mad Maggie, with the double zoning pressure with the Mad Maggie Caustic, potentially works out to be just as aggressive as Reject Winity needed to come out on top.
And it's good shouts, right? Because we have seen teams dabble into Wraith. She is not going to be, lo and behold, the Bangalore picks, the Bloodhound picks. She is definitely niche. And although DSG, you know, we've seen Designful play that over in North America, it has been popping up, albeit few and far between. Regardless, they asserted their domination regardless of what they have been locking into. But we did have the APAC South Regional Finals just this morning, and at least for me, it was Tom Young-Kung that came out on top. And well, they did it kind of with that traditional legend composition that we have been seeing. Bang Blood Caustic has been one of the favorite comps that we've witnessed throughout the journey of Season 20.
Right, and especially with Season 20 still kind of working its way into this sense of figuring it all out, the Caustic Bang composition in particular is starting to win, or at least lead, the lion's share of a race. Having the double smoke, having the lack of clarity for so many of these other teams is making it incredibly difficult, and then giving that to your fragger, the Bloodhound potential to work around that kind of LOS success that you have, is a huge reason why this is continuing to work that way through the meta. It's the reason why we see teams kind of start to dissuade the Watson pickups, as well as alongside as dropping the Valkyries and a few others, especially to get those control scans.
It's kind of crazy because we think about it, because APAC South for me, the regional final started at 2 a.m. and I knew I had a really long day today, so I wasn't going to wake up at 2 a.m. and start it. But when I woke up at about 7:30 this morning, 5.5 hours in, We were sitting on, I believe, game 7 or game 8. It went all the way to 10 games, Zephyr. That's breaking records for APAC South. The entire community was showing out this morning. I saw a lot of favorites that are kind of, even Tom writes great articles out there, was in chat this morning. But you've always got to be a part of a little bit of history. But I don't even think that was the longest, Zephyr, right? Like APAC North, didn't we have a 13 game? It was 14?
13 or 14 right there. Yeah, last split goes in the entire distance. So, hey, Match Point can run its money up and dissuade, or at least delay for some of these teams when it comes to the time frames as a whole, and especially for people like Genome. That's quite a tall task, a tall order of games you've got to endure.
Yeah, see, that's why I've been kind of talking about, like, you don't want to wait until regional finals to make a play to get to LAN. If you find yourself outside the top 8, anything could happen, whether you're going. We even saw some people doing a little bit of interesting things in APAC South with Wonton Dumpling already securing the top of the leaderboard and going straight to land on Legends Gaming to make sure that they outperformed them to take that overall lead over Split 1. But, you know, hey, if you at home are watching all of our pro games here and you're like, you know, I could do that. All right, well, let's see it. Because there's something called the Challenger Circuit, and the Split 1 Challenger Circuit does have registration open for all of those dates. Get it going, get your team locked and loaded. You know, Zephyr, let's put a team together, shall we?
Not a chance. I coach a collegiate team. Yeah, that's fine. Dia's an absolute monster. Throw Vicky in there and you've got a star-studded roster. But when it comes down to it, this is the second best of the best. These teams are just as good. And to put truth to the matter, the 8 teams that we are sending down today will be competing against these squads coming out of Challenger Circuit for them to potentially take a Pro League spot.
Look. You want to get in Pro League, you want to be like the teams that you're witnessing today, go send it, right? And maybe I will call upon Vicky. She did just tweet out, she got the 4K badge on Bloodhound. So, you know what? I do need a roller player, and if I'm going to get one, it's going to be Vicky.
Ooh. Brandishing my M&K. I'm so sad over here. I promise I can put up the numbers that count when you call upon me. I can hard decky my way through a match or two. Yes.
All right, so Grim Reaper the second.
The North American.
The North American version of it. Regardless, will we get more Grim Reaper-like moments out of Hardeki in these final 2 matches? Aurora currently sitting at about 6th overall on the leaderboard, which is very unlike them, albeit it's still a good performance. So let's go ahead and go through. Omit your winners of match number 4. Aurora match 3. Made in Heaven and Alliance take those first 2 maps of the day. Will we get a repeat winner, or will we get some differentiating things as teams look to unseat LCDF off the top of the leaderboard, coming in with 58 points?
Oh, it's a tall order, but one that is still achievable by the likes of many. When we talk about the point spread between them and Passion UA, it is only a difference of roughly 19 points, I believe. Ultimately, not impossible, but within the 2 games remaining, especially depending on LCDF, very, very possible.
It is possible, but it is going to be tough, especially with LCDF not being any stranger to fighting. They just go through, take what they want. Nothing is given. They're currently averaging about 14.5 points per match, and the large majority of that being through eliminations, currently sitting on 37 elims. But enough talk about that, because it is time to start talking plane lines, where we're headed, a central zone, and the plane is going to start just in the south by Devastated Coast, going all the way up to North Pad.
Woo! So arguably relatively balanced here for most of our teams, especially as we talk about some of those rosters that need their time to get to the Northeast. But I'll tell you what, Tiff, I don't think it's a plane. I think it's a hammerhead shark.
You really, you think they just fly in on a hammerhead shark, very Aquaman-like?
I think I can say anything.
I mean, that's true. You really can. Whether or not you return again will be another story. I'm just kidding.
Fair game, fair game. I wore noises today. Not true at all. I was the opposite end of that argument.
Nah, noises was a gem, let's be real. And as we see Omit, your winners of last match, make their way to a contest-free Zeus station, immediately start turning their attention to things that are going to get them their Evoke shields leveled up. But for a zone that we have yet to see, Cito, did we get it? No, we got it all the way back in match 2. It pulled to the houses outside of Cito near that Evo cache that GoNext is by.
All right, and that's where GoNext lost that game as Aurora climbed up to take away that victory. So if there's a chance to do good and find your way back into the fray and deliver on a POI that you know and claim as home, this is your opportunity. And that to me, Tiff, is usually always the real test. When you've got the poll directly to you, that should be your game.
It should, and honestly, I'm very happy that the entire Cito and even a little bit of that water in the front of Barometer is in, because we think back to North America yesterday, where a good bit of Checkpoint was in, and everyone was reading it. Hey, we're going Checkpoint. I think 90% of the lobby was sitting in Checkpoint. The pool comes through straight down to Cito, and, well, the mass exodus occurs and chaos assumes. So as we look in, we got our friendly neighborhood pest control.
Oh. Far from friendly within neighborhoods, but definitely present all the same. We'll see if they're able to stay alive, similar to the, well, bugs they call their friends. For LCDF, they're on their rotation, or my apologies. It's kind of an odd one. Forge on their rotation. And what will be now Portugal, at least defending middle ground here, going to make sure that they're the ones that take away the Evo and head on their rotation.
I love that they've already hit it to blue, right? They're going to be one of the teams that got first feet on the ground for map number 5. So getting to blue as quickly as possible is going to be nice. You get the immediate notification. You're scanned by a nearby survey beacon, but you get information of where that scan occurred. And they're still trying to find out, where did 202 roam off in that trident? Well, they're kind of laying down here by this grav cannon. That information is going to immediately go on to them. They're on white. Here comes the EMP for QUERER. It's not going to be shot out, and they lose the rest of those whites. Aussie is going to be the only one able to maintain some of that. We throw up the cat wall, which, hey, we were talking about it early. Few and far between, but they're here. Postkill doesn't care. He's going to run right through it. Sure, I don't need vision.
Now, notably, this is something that is completely negated in terms of the buffs that we saw from previous seasons, so not really holding much of its weight. And for Portugal, especially after damage like that, they're happy to continue this assault. This chase here, stuck now in the side of the HQ. Miscam, gotta be really careful. Missiles on the other side, just barely.
Half those missiles hit the front of the wall, and that's okay, because it did save Miscam just a little bit longer. Curious to see what's going on. If you're trying to pop a med kit, well, that's going to take about 8 seconds, and Q doesn't want to give you the time to be able to full heal. And now Team Portugal is trying very hard to push them back in. QUERER opens it up with the first knock on to Rakafaka, making it a 3v2 and about to go 3v1, but still cannot get the final touch on to 202.
Kind of a delay of action here. Will turn around and actually be shot out in before they are on that full wipe of 202. Got to turn tail and actually now defend against the likes of this later rotation from Vex. We know they start out here just towards the east. So finally in from what is their start. You're going to hear an evac. Portugal looking for the run. It's point blank though.
Oh, we just need one more bullet, but QUERER does go down. Still not a full end on Team Portugal, as Postkill will be the one to run into open water and to hopefully find some safety. Off screen, we lose out on Passion UA, and I don't want to say this, but sometimes when casters like to talk about a certain thing, specifically me saying Passion UA is way better on Stormpoint, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sometimes the curse is real.
Something of a promise, some would say. One that needs to be broken here.
One last chance to reverse this curse. You're welcome to whoever told me to fit. They told me to fit in more rock song lyrics in my cast, and you're welcome for that one. Good luck figuring it out, and hopefully
if they want rock song lyrics, I could go literally all day.
do it.
I could rock them all night long.
Stay healthy though on the roof of Cito. Now, with this zone looking a little different and a lot of our teams getting that ring information early on, you're not going to see what you saw in NA last night. We are going to have the majority of our teams playing from Cito Station, looking for any area that they can make happen. Stay Healthy does get the roof, the upper area, and you can constantly climb up, put pressure. I've even seen teams where Mizuko is kind of sitting, try to take angles where you are relatively hidden, so you're not going to get that return damage. Forge, Infinite making their way. But with Aurora being the one that did win out on that zone we called earlier, the only one to pull Cito, can they run it back? You know, we've got Aftermath just ahead of them, but, you know, Aurora likes their rocks, and I think they want to take hold of that.
They do have the time to delay, especially with most of that hillside being in play here. I do want to pull the point back to stay healthy, though, just to kind of give everyone a fair update. 21st before going into today, avoiding relegation, not quite in those regional finals, but ultimately currently in 18th overall. That kind of performance would currently put them into a position where they're going to have to compete against their Challenger Circuit friends. So this is their most important game yet, even if, well, Zone ain't quite there.
That's pretty gross. I actually like Aurora's position more, though, because now you don't have to run through all of the teams in Cito. You play off map scan, you see where everyone is. You're not going to have that zone 3 information. But look at the rotation, right? They just kind of hang down south of Millage and wrap around that choke. Now, granted, if you do it too early, you're going to have to contend with all the teams making their way out of Cito. But it looks like Na'Vi is catching wind of it, and they're like, you know, this is where we're going.
I'd be surprised if they actually knew here, but ultimately, it's the fact that they lose good positioning in the likes of Cito that forces them up the hill. And as a result, they're going to move continuously here. They don't quite know that they've got one heck of a position now. Down deep, Barometer's side here.
Oh no. Okay, look, are we gonna play from the building in Barometer and fight north? Because that's acceptable to me. Sometimes if you don't know where it's pulling, looking for a solid area that's not going to have you go out in that mid game where everyone goes from about those 18 squads to about 11. And then you would look at where Alliance is making their step towards. They're kind of mirroring Na'Vi in that rotation, but they actually have the info.
They're going to set themselves up within this building. Na'Vi just a little bit too deep here, setting themselves up for a cross take on Barometer as a whole, and also looking to see if they can get themselves up on that Evo. Notably, it does seem like Matafe was able to secure that first package pickup and will take advantage of the extra length from that bow check. 50 on the go, but again, Na'Vi is opting to go for the wide swing, potentially all the way around and even back through Jurassic.
That's weird. Okay, look, if you're gonna grab the Evo caches, that makes sense. You get triple purple. Maybe you look for some extra KP to kind of bolster your scoring, knowing you're not where you typically have been, and you want to do as much as you can in these final 2 games. But at the end of the day, you take that full wrap, you're going to end right back where you started, kind of by that gate in Jurassic.
Notably, they may not even end up where they want to be here. Vex coming through, the full ult in play. A wingman now on the other side and choking them out here. They've got them covered on double angles.
Yeah, it's tough though. None of those nades gonna connect, but Tyler's gotta stay alive here, and Babylon's has the wingman, and coupled with the beast of the hunt, it's gonna allow them to do so much damage. Despite all the damage going out, we have not seen a single knock come through. The shield being broken on the lifeline, knowing that's immediately going to be Matafe. But at the end of the time, that round 2 is closing, and Na'Vi just takes that full wrap. Not necessarily finalizing that push, but you know what that means. We saw Alliance mirror Na'Vi in their rotation, and with all the chaos and the noise that Vex has been making, we burned through our ultimates, and now we have to face off potentially against Alliance.
This is really tough too in terms of cover. You're working with the bare minimum out here towards the edge. You've got a chunk of rocks that are going to be in, but it's going to be within a nook and cranny, and if it isn't capitalized now, it will be later. For Na'Vi, the rotation all the way back around, the longest winded exchange puts them right back in their place, but arguably now even worse, they're stuck on the eastern side here, forced to contest against 3 other rosters if they want to make their way through.
Yeah, at least we're on triple purple here. I'm just kind of looking at what we have to offer. Kinda's got a Moby in pocket, not an evac. 1 bat, a couple shield cells here, and for Tyler, at least he has 4 bats. So if Kinda does run out, we can share that. But with Cold on your left for the gate and LCDF ahead of you, this is going to be tough. Should the zone have shifted, which it didn't, LCDF would have been holding a potential end game. But for now, we're going to have to worry about that cross through the gate and even then straight into the open water.
We talked about them earlier here, and now we look for their success. The Forge as a duo going in aggressively, dropping that Nox gas grenade will still inevitably be picked up from behind there. Fate in Heaven quickly piecing them apart, and for Phoenix lands right in the same position. For Arctic, it's a perfect two-piece.
Nice job by Made in Heaven there, and Stay Healthy pops up to the top with that Goldar 301, takes a couple damage and immediately drops back down despite holding the top of Cedo. They have remained nice on their shield count. Now, we talked about this earlier, that Vex was eventually going to have to face up against Alliance to be able to clear this side. Babylon still does not have that Beast of the Hunt available, and Clemmy goes down early. Babylon's, though, holding tight as Alliance swarms with a nice 3-1 cleanup. And look at our scoreboard here. They came in, was it near like a what? Around 11 points outside of LCDF, and as many teams as we can take down with us is gonna get us closer to that. Aurora, though, they've made their way here, and another wingman for Hardeki.
Ooh. This time around, let's see if those shots sing out here. Maybe a little bit quicker, but ultimately, they've got to put up against what is now a weakened Alliance. Couple utility completely down and out, and Hardeki from the other side. It's the perfect setup.
Ooh, we lose that on impulse, but it's fine. It's called a lifeline res, and we're gonna get that. You immediately step in front of that to try and body block, and now you lose out on Hardeki and EURORA. He's got to play around these knockdowns to go ahead and finish the last couple bits of Alliance off, but not before we get shot from elsewhere. It's gonna make a very tough engagement for Alliance. They get the reset, but time is of the essence to make it happen. Jumping ship back over to Omit, clearing out the other side of Millage towards Bean. Blast does have that knock on to QUERER, but so much chaos. All the visual clutter is going to make things difficult. Oh! Okay.
Might be difficult, but you'll slide right into the exchange there. Laka with the wingman perfectly set up, and now turning to what might be the next 2v2. Has to play great coverage here to prevent this assault. Light finally back up in the 3v3, but ultimately it is going to be Bambino that drops first.
Is the wingman back on the ground, or are we just spawning a ton? Do you remember days when the wingman was on heavy ammo and it was on the ground? GoNext, though, with swing here. They've already got Light down, and now Kaishi, the last one, but from behind they fall. Pest Control makes their way, saves Omit to see another day. There is no way we get this reset, though, do we?
No, they do. That was all them.
What?
That was all them. Left with the wingman again. Like you said,
wingman. It's the wingman. It's the MVP of the day. It is.
It feels like it is coming. It's coming through in a way that has given these teams more to work with than you would expect. Ultimately, it ain't quite on the ground, but especially with Lifeline being more and more common, there's a reason why it sits currently at the 7th highest damage total weapon in the game for a weapon that has bare neck half the time.
Okay, here we go again. LCDF begin the work, and shouts out from that Bangalore perk. And although Zidane does put down a ton of damage, Kiner is just hip firing, ADSing that L-Star, but it won't be enough. They will fall, and LVH only has 2 standing. It's not going to be enough time for them to hit a full reset. They do get some shield swaps in before Infinite makes their way over. Here comes the swing and the Havoc. We talk about it being the preferred AR throughout. And a little bit of that double AR meta joining alongside the Hemlock. Here comes Navi, right back to kind of where they started. They do get some space here and an immediate smoke for cover to try and stay healthy.
It's going to be that evac that saves the day for Navi. As I swear, you just got to stop saying these names. That's it for Stay Healthy. So straight up out and dusted there over on the other side. Alliance now, though, working from that southern choke where they dominated against Vex and Aurora, will be quick to clean up all these rosters who have no care in turning around whatsoever.
Every time I hear that drone fly by, I'm like, QUERER, where are you standing? Where are you standing? If we ever needed more free cam observers for the broadcast, I think QUERER could be qualified.
Oh, absolutely. For folks at home that don't know, it's the same concept. It's literally just, it is actually the drone itself. Now, we'll tune in, though, with Na'Vi. It's been done and dicey with their rotation, but how are they going to navigate this end zone?
Okay, ready? Come to me and then walk in. Let's go.
Yep, let's go, scanning. I got cracked up.
Drowning. Watch out, crypto team.
Yeah, behind us. Behind us here, baby.
Alright, we need the next scan for below. We need to also...
I need energy.
Team far left.
I'm good.
Okay, can we go right, maybe? Let's stroke and then in.
Yeah.
No. We have to.
My team is right below.
We might have to win below.
Okay.
Yeah, there's team on the left.
Yeah, I think actually Germany might be good. Like Germany. But against Sean.
Okay, can you smoke right? No, look left. Kill them.
On me. So much damage.
Make damage to that.
I'm healing.
Listen.
Next swing, we need to kill them. Okay?
Yeah.
Next swing, we need to kill them. One guy got thirsted. Nice.
I'm fine.
And then we need to walk in with smokes.
Okay, let's go.
Looking out now.
Smoke.
Swing. Break it fast, nice.
Swing. Tell right. I'm TV. Come to me. Back. All the way. I'm dead. Use me. The third phase is play right after. Take your time.
Walk up.
I love that they left those Watson fences up for the sheer amount of time, but trying to make it into that open water when Alliance has so much space. Unlucky. At least they grabbed as much KP as possible for Na'Vi before falling into the final three. It's Made in Heaven, Omit, and Alliance. And look at that scoreline. They have usurped LCDF for the top of the leaderboard, and now it's all about reuniting back with Hackis, who has found himself just a little bit separated. Does have just a little bit of an angle to work with. The shield back comes through, and Omit. Hey, can we improve on the top three?
Ooh. But for Alliance, I will say, after the elimination of LCDF and their performance today as a whole, we might be rearing up for a potential victory, not just here in this game, but overall. If they come out on top of this game, they walk away with a dominant lead going into Game 6, potentially taking it from LCDF here. For all three of these teams, though, their sights set upon land, their histories decided at the end of the day. This is a test currently, and we've got to see who might stand at the best of EMEA first.
I really do like the setup that Made in Heaven's working with the fences, and Omit is able to just keep continuously putting pressure on the double trident setup. They're going to move it up just a little bit further. About 80 or so damage will occur. You jump back to the rocks, but you're setting your sights to move forward. Smoke, scan, and honestly, my man, the arm on that caustic, bro, that perk upgrade which allows you to essentially become the quarterback of an NFL team. Doesn't matter.
That boy throwing dumbbells like they're peanuts out here.
Something, but still has that Jenny for the next rotation. It's all about managing your cooldowns here and saving them for the time being. But look at Alliance. They're inching closer over towards Made in Heaven, and even Omit is only going to have the Trident come through. But here we see the Bang ults. The Rolling Thunder's probably going to eat apart at Omit.
Meanwhile, the nades find it coming down from above here, and they will ring with just as much pressure and pain as the height as well. But in the return, though, Lufka, once again, the wingman in play, comes to save the day. A drop from behind as Alliance will lose out on one. This could be what sets Made Up in Heaven for their win.
Come on, like at this point in time, Made in Heaven, they get to play for the win, and Synetic cannot go down here. There were already trades on that first fight. The full send coming in, and now just trying to navigate through this. A glass cannon in hands of Synetic. Arctic takes towards the top. Tax, do not go down, you do, and now all hopes go to Arctic to try and put this one for Made in Heaven. The Chow comes in, he grabs that knock on to Unlucky, but it's not gonna be enough. Alliance do it again.
From in between a fight, down to a duo, to the resets galore, and the win that counts above all. Alliance come out on top, playing the fights against both Omit and Made in Heaven. That is something that goes beyond a guaranteed win.
Like, it's just nice, right? You got Hackis on the broadcast yesterday. Was it the broadcast buff? Because you returned to your match day to play today, and next thing you know, it's like, do we net ourselves our first match day win? But we only have one more to go after this, and you're gonna have to hold it on because LCDF, man, they're not gonna want that to let that go.
No, when it comes to the pressure they've been applying, it has been critical all day. A mass that is a weight that Alliance is continuing to build up the strength to lift out from on top of themselves. But with that game under their belt, 12 points from the win and the guarantee of the KP alongside it, you have to remember they were literally right there within that top 3 to potentially take that spot away. I would not be surprised if they're walking into now a dominant position. For Made in Heaven, though, in a minute, doesn't get much worse. They were also top 8 overall, and that's something that will allow them to at least host a robust set of points that lets them feel safe knowing that they're on top of the board for EMEA.
True. And you think back to it, because we've kind of been talking about two different things here. It's making it to regional finals, which is essentially the top 20 overall for the EMEA region. But they only have 8 LAN spots to move on to split 1 playoffs. Alliance come into match day number 9, sitting in 9th place, outside of that top 8 where they want to make it. And they've been consistent throughout split 1, but it has by no means been anywhere near dominant. They have not gotten a first, a second, or I think even a third. So taking a match day win for them to get that 25 points overall would really help solidify themselves in those LAN contention spots moving into regional finals, which, folks, if you're at home and you've got questions, yes, the winner of the regional finals do automatically secure that LAN spot, but the rest is left up to the points that you accrue between today and the regional finals.
So ultimately, for any one of our top 20, you have the chance to make it to LAN just by competing through our match point finals. But that does mean it's technically not 8 in a way. There are only 7 that work on forward from the points themselves. You could be watching someone like potentially Infinite, who have done remarkably in this last game, walk into a wonderful win on finals, and then some of those top rosters are going to be on their way home.
Hey, that's true. And really interesting to think of. But for match 5 results, let's go ahead and look at it. A dominating show out here from Alliance. 17 eliminations for a total of 29 points. We saw the climb accrue outside of the top, and now they have usurped it. The question is, by how much did they do it? Made in Heaven and No Myth, though, still performing quite well, and we were talking about Na'Vi being outside the top 10, needing a good showing on the last 2 games. Well, a double digits there for the game, not bad.
The crazy thing for Na'Vi is they literally just need a handful of points here to, I think, literally put them in LAN contention. So ultimately, a top 4 working your way out of match 5 is a perfect result to work with here. As we look, though, at the second half, LCDF, AURORA, The Forge, Passion UA, huge names, huge factors that have been performing all day long, struggle in our penultimate iteration.
It's really tough. At this point, you're right. You know, maybe Passion UA was just better on World's Edge and not good on Stormpoint. I'm trying to reverse it, okay? I'm trying to see what I can do here, because coming into match day number 9, Passion UA was sitting in 6th place. So they're inside that top 8, but when you have teams like Alliance, Made in Heaven that were in 8th and 9th, they're looking to kind of bounce over them, and you can only afford so much before you fall out.
Oof. It's a tough spot to be in. Something I did want to point out is the fact that Stay Healthy breaks into the top 10 there, which could guarantee them a spot away from relegation. But we'll pop on over to those KP, and it's to no surprise that Alliance, especially after some of their resurgence, has now taken away the top of the board, effect leading the pack. But LCDF is right there.
Wow. That's pretty crazy. Effect at the top with 20, 2 members of LCDF, actually all 3 members of Alliance and all 3 members of LCDF find themselves inside the top 10. And maybe it's the mid effect, maybe it's just Lufka and Light. Whatever it is, they have found themselves in a really solid day for them, because thinking about their performance, they came into this match day sitting in 16th place overall, about 22 or so points outside of the top 8. And as we look at the series results, well, you know, not only did they bounce over LCDF, they really took a good bit of the points differential there.
Yeah, this is going to be hard for LCDF to fight their way back into potentially a leading win if that's what they want here. But I want to focus on some of the bottom half of our board here. A huge shout out to Cold and Infinite, holding on for dear life to those 19th and 20th positions, placing in the top 10 today. For LVH though, a huge drop. Team Portugal as well. Both of these rosters within our upper echelon of points won't quite be knocked out, but gives the opportunity for some of these lower end teams to potentially get the points that count and get that opportunity, watch their dreams come true and avoid the true struggle, which I'll tell you what, I don't know if you all have seen Pro League qualifiers, but that is a demonic state of play. It is hard.
It is a gauntlet, to be said. The easiest way to go through it. It is a bloodbath gauntlet, true and true, but we only have one more game to determine who will be relegated, who's moving on to those regional finals. We're going to cut to a quick break, and when we come back, all those answers will be answered. Welcome back to the Apex Legends Global Series, where answers will be answered. No, just kidding. I literally chuckled at that, Zephyro, because why would we answer questions when you can answer answers? But we only have one more map to go. It's on Storm Point, and will Alliance get their first match day win historically through our day? They've taken 2 wins. Can they get another? Because a bonus point could be nice too, actually.
It's an answer that is waiting to be seen and a question that we'll have for it at the end of the day. But I'll tell you what, 2 on the board is something nice to see, and it ultimately does leave up tiebreak available, right? Going into match 6, if Alliance, or not tiebreak, extra points available. If they come out of match 6 with that win, they are rewarded for their success, which when we're talking about overall point standings, that extra point can make the difference.
Yeah, we talked about it, right? They came into this match day in 9th place, 67 points. Made in Heaven is tied alongside Cybercats at 70. Passion UA sitting in 6th with 73. So within a 25-point match day win for them, potential for 26. Think about what that does. I know you said you're good at math, so I'll let you do quick math right there, but it's definitely north of 73.
At least coming out on top of that one, you will find themselves at 93, which currently, if the statistics around 89 points work out to be land qualification, that does put them above it. Even with a win on their belt, they are currently above it here. So for Alliance, coming out with a win on the day of might have just sent them to land. But granted, it is still one single game that separates them from potentially a spot, a future, a place to behold against the international titles.
Well, only time will tell. Can they get those points that are so desperately needed? We don't want it coming down to the line on those regional finals. But as our teams make their way, you can see Alliance just kind of navigating throughout the canon of Thunderwatch. They will be one of the first squads to hit the ground as we are finally moving that plane from north to south. And from there, we wait to see where we head.
Small peek of our zone there. Over, you can see in our top left mini box, as it will be working similar to what we saw last game, but ultimately opening up the presence of Barometer and, of course, a little bit of that Jurassic area that we all know and love. The potential playthroughs here. For Alliance, though, I don't think they worried. They got themselves into a position that was right there alongside the fray. One of the best positions that even you, Tiff, called out early on towards that house from a spot like this.
Yeah, they did absolutely great. I mean, that is the longest rotation from Lightning Rod. Anytime you have to go to those southern zones, you just really have to loot as quickly as possible. But you can see they've already got an Evo cache pinged for them. They'll have that 350 netted from that. They've already got about 55 more that they'll need to put themselves onto blue. So of no worry there. But setting their sights on that zone that is pulling to kind of favor where Passion UA is, and even Navi in Pylon. Team Portugal just has a quick cop and a skip from Coastal Camp to make their way into that. But if we do pull to another potential for an open ending in the water, with teams are really going to have to rely on the Bangalore smokes to kind of stay in the clear.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but ultimately you do still get a lot of the spacing available in Barometer to kind of house up if you're one of those rosters that is playing around the caustic, but the time is ticking. You got to make your way over here. And for teams like TSM Phoenix, a different clock is currently ticking. Currently in 18th overall. This is a roster that walked into today at the very bottom at 27th. Now, notably with 26 points, they only have to surpass roughly about that kind of 33 to 35 mark. But currently, they're not there.
Oh no, Kyrie pushes down, holds the door, but not enough. As soon as you turn around to make a play, you get shot from the back, but it doesn't matter. We've got Revenant, we've got Lifeline, and the quick reset coming through, but it was scary for a moment.
It is tough, especially when you're down a single member there. Now on the reboot, Forge looks to potentially take advantage, and I don't think that white health is going to be completely full for Kyrie here, so just gotta be a little bit careful over on the edge. Jay Savage to be that entry frag, as the nades are going to give them a little extra time.
Ooh, I hear the beast of the hunt being popped, and well, now we're just looking as we enter. Time dwindling down, but reminder, you can typically extend that should you be able to get that perk later on in your perk tree. For now, scan comes through. Well, we've got our lines on, and now sometimes you got to kick through the door, and but hey, you know what? Not a lot of these early fights have to be pretty. We just got to make them happen.
It's been a struggle, though, thus far for the Forge, trying to work their way, and they do inevitably come through with the double knock drop. Frass from the outside, keeping the dream alive, but broken in terms of getting past the barrels on the door here. This caustic locking down these places so quickly. I mean, that's incredible. Working your way in, blocking with barrel, and then turning right round. A leap forward here now from above, and Fraz having to reload the swap.
My God. Gets a shield core swap, albeit only about 5 HP on it. But going into that fight, I can say that I've done that many times, not making sure that your secondary weapon that you're going to switch to is reloaded. And that time will cost you. Now Forge will get to go on a relatively clean reset and kind of carry on their momentum. The change in time that it took for that engagement has allowed teams like LCDF, Made in Heaven, start to kind of inch their way closer to that southern zone.
It's tough here. TSM Phoenix, that's something that I'm still thinking about. Ultimately, needed to have an ultimate game here, right? Needed to have something excellent in their final game, potentially now, of the EMEA Split 1. And to be honest, walking away at what was 18th with only a couple of points there, they may pop into 17th, but I just don't think that's enough points. We'll let the standings work their way out towards the end here, but we might already be sending our next relegated team home.
LVH, they take down Tyler from Navi. Now, granted, since Matafe does play Lifeline, which is going to be that support character, should we not be able to recover the banner, they can rely on crafting it. However, very tough to do so in ALGS. However, we did see Hardeki go on a tangent yesterday, not only crafting and trying to res once, but they were going for a second before they got cut down.
I don't know about you. I saw Infinite literally rise right in front of, or Revive literally in front of 4 teams in survey camp earlier today. So, especially given this early, I think Navi got time. Navi got a lot of time.
They'll be fine. Gotta find a crafter first, and as they rotate out of zone, they're gonna be heading straight towards Cold, still making their way in. Otherwhere, we have Made in Heaven getting set up in Barometer with that second zone information. So I have to look for the teams that when round 1 starts to finish that close, right? We pop ring 2. Who are the teams that are going to have access to a ring console to get the third zone information and have a more accurate depiction of where they need to move towards?
It's a tough spot here, but ultimately, if you don't have it, south. Good guesses, you know? Find your way into the buildings or the bushes or potentially what is the pineapple buildings just on the outside of Jurassic for Vex. They take from zone directly into Pylon. This is where Cold was situated just on the outskirts a moment ago, and even from the hillside. Come here. You've got to be more careful than that.
Well, good thing more lifelines appearing here for EMEA. You drop your Q and you immediately start to get that reset going through, but as they are the only team inside of Pylon, the availability of the Evo cache is there. It'll just be some nice little top-ups before you have to go into that end game. For LVH, after taking down Tyler, they're moving forward, and look at that nice ring console that is so calling Vife's attention. At some point, they'll grab that.
Really good from LVH, sitting at 11th right now. Gonna keep everyone updated on these things. Ultimately walking in today at 18th. Should be relatively safe, even for regional finals here.
Speaking of a team that will find themselves kind of safe, Omit, you know, starting that journey northward in points south on Storm Point. Well, we look at where that zone's going to be pulling.
Northwest.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah, exactly. We like the upward trajectory when it comes to the point scoring, but for our zone that pulls yet again a little bit further south this time, very similar to what we've been witnessing for Storm Point here. Back to the water and Infinite kind of holding that choke there. That's going to be one of the scariest positions in my eyes because you have so many teams north of that area that are going to be looking for a place to get into Barometer if you're not already there.
Yeah, especially since this has the opportunity at least to pull back towards that beach end in our final moments, and that can be a good position to work your way in from. For GoNext, they want to clear out this building. It's getting a little too tight, a little too musty, a little too gassy in there for Tolkien. Breathed in a little too deep.
Hey, Fashion UA, find a KP. This is the start of what they need here for match number 6. And to be fair, you land in Barometer. You're on blue shields. I was worried about what that loot would look like. Yeah, we just are running an iron sight flatline. Okay, not my favorite, but to be fair, you really have to kind of go with what you can get. Let those eliminations come to you, and by that way, find your loot. Elsewhere, you've got Alliance on triple purple, Omit to the right, and Team Portugal holding Gravity Cannon.
Arguably just as tough as a spot to defend here, but can work its way out well, especially if you're able to contest the building. But granted, taken right now, they're starting to extend here. This is not a roster that ultimately needs the ton of points, but could potentially look for it. A Trident on the other side, though, says they're just going to look out towards the west, clean things up from behind. They should be okay.
He should. I'm keeping my eyes on Posty over there. Kind of just living, laughing, maybe. I don't know. There's a statement out there. Live, laugh, love. LCDF in the Trident, though, hitting a rotation towards Cedo.
I do actually like this ultimately, especially since we know building is contested and you get Team Portugal out there. It's a little bit easier to work your way in from the north, knowing that even if you get successful fights there, the resets that LCDF would find themselves in aren't actually that awesome of positions, and ultimately you're up against a team like Omit, suddenly building down, utility unavailable.
This is going to be tough. Yes. Immediately we get Tyler back in. We throw the evac tower down, but we have the ring at our back and we have to go towards Forge. I'm not sure what our medkit syringe capabilities look like. Will that be able to hold you down as you hit maybe a more western wrap towards LCDF and the Alliance? Because you could only stay here for so long in the ring, and with Phoenix kind of setting up those Nox traps all over the doors, it's going to be tough for them.
That's it. They've got to go for the extended rotate there, and they might, like you said, find themselves in a sense of action as they breach through the relatively open area that still currently exists just towards the north of our chokes there. For LVH, holding the outskirts of where Forge were once playing, they don't even bide their entire time, but they've actually successfully spotted out Cold here.
Subject over there.
Jumping back on board with LVH. Not necessarily
Gonna do
where
it.
they need to be for the Barrow. Here goes the scan, and well, it connects. We've got the information of Cold. Let's jump into a quick listen in with them.
Good dot team. Back out. Back at John if you can. Back out. Shoot that John, please.
You can smoke left.
I got it.
You can smoke left. Look.
I'm smoking left. I think they're running right. I might still.
No, me.
One guy.
Okay, yeah.
I tagged 140 in the back.
Oh, bring down him. Ape him.
Yeah, check right. Bang one. I'm making that.
Yeah. What are we? Me.
Where?
Oh, me.
You're close.
We. Go. Nice.
Mike, me team. Kill this thing.
New team. Just kill him.
Okay, I'm summoning.
Aping. Well, swing it left.
Go down.
Nice. He's running back now. Bruh.
There was one word in particular that I think summed up that entire fight from LVH in those comms, and it was bruh.
Yeah, I do think it was surprising that they ultimately did extend that as long as, I mean, they just came from knowing Forger behind them. Ultimately, that third party was absolutely guaranteed, especially after a zone close, but that's hide nor hair for Alliance, losing out on Effect, the namesake, the Bullet, the Demon. This is a struggle now as a duo that'll have to fight their way forward. I don't know if they've got any Moby, but for now, they need to win 3v2.
202 fall elsewhere, but I'm quite honestly impressed with Unlucky. Now, not necessarily new to competitive, but newer to Alliance as Yuki kind of left the fray, but Unlucky has really adapted to Alliance quite nicely. Now, they're not going to live here. Navi will take them out and get some well-needed KP for them. Now we just kind of, that's true. That's true, dang. Man, I was watching the stream when they were saying goodbye to Unlucky, and man, it was sad. But regardless, Navi's got some work to do today, and with LCDF falling, it opens the door on the leaderboard because it's Omit that is still up and at him.
There you go. We called it. If you work your way out from this southern side, Omit is just going to capitalize. The question is, now with utility down and Navi working their way in, this is a potential opportunity to capitalize. Granted, fighting your way through this, especially with some of the sight lines from the south, you've got to be uber careful with only 48 seconds to deliver.
Let's see how they approach it. Caustics make building fights so messy. Everyone's running it. Kind of does open the door, take down Blast, but we have to kind of reset out. And meanwhile, look at Light running, trying to form some kind of nature there. The evac tower goes down. We're delaying the inevitable. We do get knocked there. Turn back towards Forge here alongside Infinite. A little bit of chaos erupting around the nut, and Slayers from above. That hipfire, the G7 Scout isn't always pretty, but it works out here, and Infinite will fall.
Yeah, almost all of that picked up by Slayers in the end there. It's a huge success for the Forge. They move their way from one choke to another. Now 2 rosters under their belt, continuing to balloon that score and now send them into the top 10. This cross, though, we know is so difficult, especially out in the open, but the buildings themselves, they're just as contested.
Made in heaven, though, they have an opportunity to break into the top 3 now that Omit has fallen. And you know, I don't love the current positioning of where that zone is heading to. You've got a lot of teams to go through.
It's a tough spot here. Heaven on the outskirts will get the back end of this door closed. Meanwhile, Aurora, needing a spot to work with, have found good takes onto YQ there. Gas on the defense, but ultimately finally broken upon their shields. Made in Heaven from the outside makes this slightly difficult and prevents Aurora from pushing completely in. Instead, they're going to take some time with the lifeline.
I I mean, they're chilling, right? You call in the supply package, you get more bats if you were ever running low, but it's Max Strafe picking up some other eliminations elsewhere. Exo Clan fall. This building, though, is so congested. You've got Made in Heaven, Team Portugal, even Aurora kind of on the roof. You look towards your right, you've got GoNext and Navi in a little bit of a layer cave. Aftermath holding the bridge, which is quite possibly going to be nice, right? You think about moving forward towards that bridge, it will be open. But for Made in Heaven, who have a journey ahead of them, let's jump into that listen.
This is inside. This fence that side and we're chilling.
Yeah, I think it's a team on the roof and then a team inside top floor.
Yeah, top floor and roof. What is our next play though? This rock is in.
The rock,
I think
yeah, the
it's
rock.
down.
Yeah, we shut up angle up top and kill everything on.
Left, there might be a rock on the left now.
Are they fighting above again?
Connect, you can scout from me. You can scout from me.
Wait, I'm standing, wait.
One team dropped.
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay, chill. They might fuck me on the.
No,
Yeah,
they're
they might like intas on the star.
Yep.
Can I peek the heady? Can we peek the heady?
Which one?
Stand. This heady, like on the stairs.
7 seconds on it. Snag. 3.
7.
Go now.
Good.
All in the room, Block the door, fence. Come back.
Two armors.
Yep, shield.
I don't know. I popped that fucking.
Just hold them, keep holding that.
Yeah, just fence it.
They're going on the other side, I think.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Play me.
Rocket, chill.
They're barreling here, on the corner.
Yeah, in the window, okay.
I'm bang ulting.
Yep, Tax, come back.
I'm coming.
Do you want me to blood ult? I'm blood ulting, fuck it.
They're inside. Wait,
They're gonna come out here, they're coming.
We have shots to the right, boys.
Look for it. They're in the
Coming. Back it!
I'm chilling.
Yeah, go on.
Dead! Last one!
Kill the last one, dog pick. All you. Nice.
Get through.
There's a soul on the bottom. Under you. He's almost stopping me.
And we keep on going. Team Portugal falls, Navi falls, and now it's Arctic making their last stand for Made in Heaven. But look who has else arrived from the building. Aurora take the bridge, Vex ahead of them. Zephyr, this one's gonna be good.
Whoo-hee. Vexed here with the final moment to prove this is the game that should set themselves up to avoid relegation before today, 24th. Now with potentially just even this match alone on their belt, knowing they even now have numbers advantages against Aurora and Made in Heaven. With a win in Game 6, they could have saved it all.
They could have. But now I keep my attention focused on the Grim Reaper himself, the embodiment of the true lifeline. Look, sometimes you gotta kind of get a little crazy, right? You throw those down, you look for extra cover, and you want Made in Heaven. You want Vex to focus on anyone else other than you. We have to inch forward, and this peak that Fonko has is kind of tough.
It's really aggressive here, but the extension out from the side from Aurora can be dicey. You've got to be careful, even as a duo. Just one pickup, and now with the return of Made in Heaven, it's not so easy anymore.
We really just gonna let this happen? Endgame? We talked about, making these reses come through. Well, welcome back, Tax. Welcome back, Cinetic. We're into full form here, and now the numbers disadvantage is going to go towards Aurora, and we full send on to the duo. We're looking for easy KP and playing for second.
Let's see Made in Heaven here with a minor heal as Lemmy's Rolling Thunder will initially drop them out. For Tax and Arctic, though, as a duo, they'll hold on for dear life, even surviving one more position's all they want, and with Aurora going potentially down, X will win.
They do just that. They hold the rock. They section things off with the Rolling Thunder, and they play it patiently. And honestly, another team with another lifeline win.
It's a huge win for there, and the reset for VACO is something that gives them their breath of life. But the positioning in general is something we should talk about. Coming out from the east there and contesting against so many rosters, we saw some of their deep dives out towards the central position, and ultimately like I said before we got into that final fight, before we got into the Vex win, that is the single game that puts them in safety, right? Had they not won that game, had they not finished as high as they did today, they could have been potentially down and out with our Challenger Circuit teams competing for Pro League once again.
Well, they're one of the teams that did stem from the qualifiers, right? So it's like, we don't want to go back and deal with what we've already done. We know what it's like. We've built upon that. We've learned throughout the entirety of Split 1. And you know what? We deserve to stay in Pro League.
Woo-wee. It's a tough spot for Vex, but one that they know many times before, and maybe that's the inkling that gives them their success. But ultimately, for Made in Heaven and Aurora, it's still big ups. Second place there alongside third finishes for Made in Heaven. That has been the story of the year for me in Split 1. From nothing, from 0 to hero, to now on the board with 11 points out of that game. This keeps them competitive, I believe, in our top 8 before we hit regional finals.
Overall, not bad, but your match results for number 6 on the day. 19 for Vex. They were outside the top 10 prior to this match, so we can only wait to see what that does for them on the overall. For Na'Vi, though, they grabbed 13 points, Made in Heaven with 11, and jumping down, even though Forge go out earlier than they would have liked, they pick up 10 eliminations.
10 eliminations there for the Forge after today with 15. It's going to pop them up and keep them, like we've said all day long, in the place of regional finals. For the remnants of our bottom-ended teams, it isn't quite as exciting. LCDF and Alliance notably falling off in their last games to show, but with no one being even close to the overall match point series, I think we know who wins.
I think we do know. We know a lot of things. And one thing I know, well, we need Glitter back. Glitter, get back in here. We've got a lot to break down from our final match day of EMEA.
Listen, we know a lot of things, but what I don't know, and I was trying to work out the entire time in that last match, is what this top 8 bubble is going to look like when everything is said and done. Because between the performances that we saw out of Passion UA, Made in Heaven, Alliance, LCDF, and considering the teams that don't get to be playing in this match day, like E6, Cybercats, I mean, there's a lot that I'm trying to keep track of. I'm not the numbers person like you are, Zephyr, so I don't have it nailed down, but I feel like some of the performances that we saw today will absolutely have catapulted some other teams into a position as far as being in that LAN qualifying spot or nailing down regional qualifiers bare minimum when they weren't there before.
I think ultimately the big question being that between Alliance and LCDF here, both respectively, with Alliance more notably kind of climbing up in these last few match days and now potentially with the overall, but for LCDF, an absurd performance today that might have put them, like you said, in one of those spots.
I can't wait to see what those standings say, but we're not there yet, okay? We need to go back and talk about the final circles from all of our Storm Point matches, because everything kicked off in an insane fashion, okay? We were talking about what could Omit bring to the table. This was the zone where we watched Cold holding a position on high up against that mountain for a really long time. It put them in a fantastic top 3 spot. And then it came down to Cold, the Forge, and Omit. And Forge decided to try and make the first move here, which allows Cold to just rain down damage from above and clean up these kills. Some really important points actually for Cold as well, because they were a team that was on that top 20 bubble heading into today, and their performance was super solid. They ended up trying to go for that final push into Omit, but with a little bit of back and forth here, the scans come through, the shots are good, and it is Omit that is able to clutch up here, close out match number 4, and this was a huge win for them. It had to feel good to nail this down. Tiff, this was a fun one to cast.
Yeah, it really was, and Omit taking the win at the end of that. But then you turn your sights to match number 5, where yet again, Omit make it to that top 3. Made in Heaven, look, they've got a really nice positioning over there. But at the end of the day, Alliance are able to single-handedly put pressure on both of these squads. And as they start kind of getting those trades, we start looking towards where is our best bet for success. Hackett does go down here early on, and you will actually see VexX trying to punch him closer towards maybe where Unlucky can kind of hit that res. VexX will be able to put the pressure back down, and Maiden Heaven's like, oh no, I mean, like, we're chilling. And then we wait for that final fight. Synetic getting cracked here and not being able to capitalize on those earlier knocks is really what kind of starts putting the nail in their coffin, Zephyr.
Yeah, and notice as they cross here how lost they look. The direction for who to send is all over the place. Synetic's in the water. Tax is bouncing between both sides here. Arctic finally gets the climb up and what is a very late blood and ultimate. And while, yes, a successful drop onto Lucky comes through, it ultimately comes at the cost of your time. Doing Maiden Heaven in and sending Alliance ahead. But with our final game here, we discussed it through and through, and y'all just at home got to see it. But for Vex, the double mano-a-mano lifeline battles with a late Maiden Heaven res was something to boot here. Like you said, Tiff, you were surprised that this Maiden Heaven res comes through, but ultimately it was perfect. Right on the cusp zone, in perfect cover. And notably, Aurora can't punish this because Vex are covering them. So the only team who can prevent this from happening is Aurora is completely disabled. Inevitably, Maiden Heaven comes down, but with little cover to behold here with that ring closing in, their only choice to move forward is the bridge itself. Playing just behind, that sets them up in the identical line of sight that Vex have been holding this entire time. Clemmy drops down that rolling thunder to boot, which sends Synetic home. And at the end of the day, you've dissuaded put out down to 2-on-2 for both of these rosters. With Vex now being the only team on the outside, damage already supplied. It is one quick cleanup from all members to give them their win.
A really strong match day performance on behalf of all of our teams here today as we get a look at our series results. This is what you guys were talking about, that gap, even with the last game being a little bit of a rough performance for both Alliance and LCDF. It is Alliance who comes out on top with a total of 77 points, followed by LCDF, and both these teams deserve it. I mean, look at those kills. They were so consistent across the board, whether that was their placements or their just slaying power today, Tiff.
Yeah, it's really nice to see LCDF kind of match their best performance, right? You look back to the last B and C, they took second, so that's great for them. And Alliance, back at the start of the split, the early game, right? They play that match day 1 in A and B. They only take home 6 points for the overall series. Jump forward to the final day, you can see the improvements overall, the quick kind of getting Unlucky up to speed, and now they get their first win of the split. And we talked about what is to come with regional finals. Well, your top 20, they'll get to play again. So more to improve on to really get yourself in that top 8.
Okay. Well, now that we got a chance to look at the series results, if I'm not mistaken, our overall standings are ready to go. And I have been waiting for this because was the performance that we saw out of LCDF, who started the day in 14th overall, enough to leapfrog them into a top 8 and go for that playoffs qualifier? Or will they just barely miss that bubble? Alliance definitely pushed themselves into a spot to really nail down a top spot. They had to have. I need to see how this plays out. Who gets relegated? Who stays in Pro League? This is what it all boils down to in split 1 for EMEA. I need to know the results. Oh no! They barely miss out on the top 8, LCDF.
Yeah.
Wait, but
it's fine. They're fine. Good. They get to play in regional finals, but the biggest issue with that positioning there with Element 6 holding on to 8th is that LCDF and Element 6 have been contesting each other in World's Edge. So what will that regional finals look like for them? Because that could be a whole mess. 07, they didn't play today. Granted, they'll have to play again in regional finals, but they give up because Na'Vi and Alliance had that extra match day. They've already surpassed the threshold of kind of that 90-ish mark that allows them to be quote-unquote safe.
As we look down.
This is crazy. Zephyr, I need to get your thoughts on the bubble that was the top 20, but also the one at relegation, okay? Because we talked about this with you at the top of show, and now we know the results of everything.
Notably, most of the teams that didn't get to play today are yes, of course, out with Pest Control still rounding out the bottom. But for 202, TSM Phoenix, EXO, and Aftermath, this is the struggle they never were able to surpass. I do want to remind folks at home, it is 8 teams going down, so I believe we'll get confirmation later here. Stay Healthy should still be fine and will remain in Pro League, but Vexed especially. That is the true story here. Barely holding on. They break away from 24th.
Wow.
Get out of relegation, win the final game, and give them just enough points to push into a remaining spot.
That's huge. Massive, massive performance to at least keep themselves in Pro League. And like you guys were saying, everyone who's qualified for that regional finals also has another opportunity to continue earning those points to make their way through to the split 1 playoffs. And this is where things get really, really important, because look at the point gap. This is the worst performance we've seen literally all season out of Aurora, and they're still in first place with 136 points. The only team, because of those performances, that have secured their playoff spot. Everybody else still a little bit up in the air, but Na'Vi, Alliance, 07 sitting so comfortable in the performance that we saw out of Passion UA today, putting them only 3 points behind 07. That battle for top 8 is going to be so close. Who will make it out of EMEA to our split 1 playoffs? If we see the performances that we saw out of LCDF today, out of Alliance, out of Na'Vi, everyone in that top 10 to 12 area is going to have to really bring it. And you were correct there, Zephyr. As you see, it's updated to show that Stay Healthy does not qualify for regional finals, but they also don't get relegated. They will remain in Pro League. Meanwhile, everybody else below that will have to go to that PLQ in a little bit over a month's time. So lots for these teams to be thinking about. Specifically though, Tiff, now regional finals right around the corner for these squads. Like you were saying, how do their strategies and plans change?
Guess we have to wait and see, right? With the chaos that we witnessed this morning in APAC South, anything is possible. And I was looking specifically towards like that 5th through 9th positioning on, and it was like, 1 point separating 4 different teams holding a potential land qualification spot. So I'm kind of uncomfortable for those squads, but we'll just wait and see.
Okay, well, we've gotten a chance to see how everything's played out in the region. The one thing we haven't gotten to talk about is who is our MVP for today. And I know that we saw lots of standout performances, and I'm not gonna lie, it was a tough choice between Effect and Zidane, but for me, I had to give it to Zidane. I mean, LCDF in general today were on a different level, especially when it came to their aggression. We saw just how much their kills really carried their points totals, but they were also consistent every single time. The one thing that helped with that consistency and with that slaying power though was Zidane. Whether that was opening up these fights and making insane swings to start the initiation on something insane, or closing out on these kills, because heading into match 6 was second in the kill leaderboard behind Effect, who also had a phenomenal day. So for me, we talked about it throughout all of these matches, but what Zidane was bringing to the table was more than just the literal numbers on the board for the team. It was the fact that he was opening up fight opportunities for the entire squad. It was the fact that he was providing crowd control with the Horizon, and you can see there almost 5k damage at the end of the day. That was an insane performance on behalf of Zidane, and honestly, on behalf of all of LCDF. But without what Zidane brought to the table, they wouldn't have been able to shoot up the leaderboard the way they did now, putting themselves in such an insane position heading into regional finals that they very well could be a team we're looking at as qualifying to that split 1 playoffs. But another team today that was right on the bubble. Were they going to qualify to regional finals? Were they not? It was 20th place. I'm talking about Cold. They had a fantastic day today. Talk about consistency. They were the picture of it. They did what they needed to do. And we have Graceful, who I'm so excited to have standing by to chat with us about the performance on the day. Graceful, welcome. It's so good to see you again. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, nice to see you all again.
Yeah, consistency. Our pro league has been omega bad, I would say, unless today. But I would say that majority of it comes down to just us. I mean, we tried something new for Pro League, and it really shows. And I think it also shows like my lacking capabilities as an IGL, swapping from what I've been doing for 5 years, trying to play Edge essentially, because my teammates and we had a coach that got poached. We tried to figure out a new strat essentially, and it just didn't work the way we wanted it to work. Right now that I literally pretty much gave just all my thoughts against the wall, and give it my all at the last chance. And I said, hey guys, I know I can make this playstyle work. Can we just try to make something out of it? And immediately we got good results out of all of the previous weeks where we had bad, because we've been trying this new thing to learn this whole new thing. And shout out to everybody knowing how to play Edge properly. But on EU, we got 10 Edge teams. So yeah, it's been a hard run, but we made it into finals. We have our last chance now to make LAN. We just gotta bring it home the next week, and just gotta go everything for it. Yeah.
Speaking of the last chance to go ahead and make LAN, because of course, obviously, we'd love to have you back and see you on the big stage playing this time, even though we did love having you on the desk. You mentioned that you've already kind of switched some things up, Graceful. So you have a week before regional finals. Are we going to keep full sending toward that? What is the game plan, the preparation going to look like? Because with regional finals, anything can happen. It's crazy. APAC South had 10 games today. So kind of talk me through the prep for that.
So yeah, our points are working right now the way we are. We might switch something up for match points when we hit that point. But for now, we're just going to be playing the same way we have this weekend for sure. Yeah, we're just going to stick to it because we know how to play more leapfroggy and more zone orientated than just sticking on Edge when there's just so many people. Like our macro has been disrupted by so many teams, especially depending on group. But normally we have about, we hit the UAV, and sometimes in other regions you see one team on Edge, two teams on Edge, they fight for one power spot. On EU, you hit a UAV, you see three coming, behind you right now. They're wrapping you, like mirroring your macro, and then you see two in front of you. And, our best bet was just to hit UAV, get information, and then make our macro change based on that. So now I would say it's less consistent because it's more on fly. Like we just have to hit the UAV and then immediately have to say, we're doing this. And it's just, it can go hard, it can go very soft. But, hey, we just got to do what we got to do. We just got to go all in.
I like that. Go all in, because at the end of the day, it's left out there on the maps themselves. But I kind of want to talk to you about something that scares me for Cold here, because ultimately, while it has been a tough season for y'all, when we look at the points, you've made it. You're in regional finals, but the points still aren't quite there. We sit somewhere around 84 points for that kind of top 8 right now, which currently somewhere around a win or even second place isn't enough, I believe, for Cold to actually make it into LAN. So that means, Graceful, if I'm correct, and people could correct me all day long behind the scenes here at some point, if y'all don't win, you don't make it. What kind of pressure does that put on y'all now, knowing that it literally comes down to potentially all or nothing for Cold going into match point?
I mean, I wouldn't say... Okay, so first and foremost, I got 20 years of FPS experience, right? Making LAN or playing LAN is nothing.
All right.
So I'm not worried, or by any means. If I fail, I just go again. I don't really care too much. But I would say that this Pro League for sure, like if we don't count the fact that we had 0 objectives for all 6 games today and RNG stuff like that, I don't really care too much. I've been cursed for a few years. I think this Pro League, we've had the chance to win. Every single time it's been our own mistakes. So I am not mad that I won't make LAN, because it's not in the hands of other stuff like RNG hard pulls or anything like that. Like, I'm not going to be upset and say, like, I deserve to go to LAN, because we don't deserve to go to LAN if we don't win now. Like, we made it through to finalist lobby now, and if we win, we do deserve to go there. We are inconsistent, but, like, it shows we have the capabilities to. And if we don't make it, it just shows we have so much more to grow, which I believe, we do. And I think for me, this whole Pro League, the most has shown me that I have a lot to grow on other playstyles that's not tied to my own personal one, that, it seems to be the only thing that works for me. Maybe I have to get another perspective, maybe swap role, maybe try something new and learn more, and maybe that can open up other potentials,
You are always so pragmatic and logical. Anytime you answer a question, Graceful, it's always an absolute joy to speak with you here on the show. So congratulations on making it through to regional finals. I'm excited to see what you guys can bring next time around. And thank you for jumping on and chatting with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we always love having Graceful here on the show, but now that EMEA is all said and done, I want to get some final thoughts from you guys on how everything played out, because today was a fantastic day, Tiff.
It really was. The teams that needed to kind of win to lock it in, they did. Alliance knew what was on the table, they took it, right? At this point in time, those 8 spots, they're not going to be given freely here. You have to earn and take what you want and go forward to Split 1 playoffs. Regardless, for our teams that got relegated, shout out to you. Wish you all the best on those Pro League qualifier journeys, because like we said earlier, it's going to be a gauntlet, and looking forward to the gauntlet of regional finals will be like me for sure.
All right, and Zephyr, give me your thoughts or even predictions if you have any, and how potentially what we might see in regional finals.
I don't know. I don't got any predictions yet. That's a cook that I have not yet begun to find the ingredients. But I'll tell you what, any one of these teams can come out on top, especially with how things have adapted. But Aurora definitely looked the best to boot. But something I will say, especially as we start working our way, not just through EMEA, but into North America tonight, anything can happen. From Alliance and LCDF boosting their score, from Infinite and Cold holding on for dear life, to teams like VexX escaping relegation. Even with just 6 games on the board, there is always hope and there is always an opportunity.
That's very well said, Zephyr. And you mentioned it. We might have nailed down who's in our regional finals for EMEA, but we still have a whole other series coming up for NA right around the corner. And you can't forget that it's obviously the last match day for NA as well, which means we'll end up with another list of teams qualified for regional finals and those who are that much closer to our Split 1 playoffs. And you'll be seeing the likes of Complexity. Okay, you saw the domination that Monsoon can bring to the table with the Sentinel, where Complexity is able to win a match day when they don't even win a match. Okay, what will they be able to do here today? And then, of course, we have SSG currently sitting in our top 10 overall. Phony, Frex, Zainu. What will they be able to do? Will they continue on some domination here, put themselves even higher up in our leaderboard? Or will they stay about the same or even fall? And then finally, we've got Disguised, Timmy and Co. always bringing something fun and enjoyable to the table, sitting right above, tied with SSG on our overall leaderboard. Will either of these teams create a little bit of disparity between themselves with their points? We'll have to see how all of that plays out. It's going to be super fun though, so make sure you're here. And as always, if you happen to miss any of the action, you can always follow us on social media at Play Apex Esports on X and YouTube, or at Play Apex on Twitch. And that way you will be fully caught up and you won't miss a single second of our ALGS action. All right, but like I've said, we've got a little bit of time before our next region. So while you're waiting, make sure you go play some Apex, okay? Test out what we've seen some of the pros doing here today and see if any of those strats can help you climb that ranked ladder. We'll see you back here in just a few hours for NA.